Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And it can't be a good day unless sunshine comes pouring through the window in the form of Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
Wow, John, you know what? My sunny disposition, it's very sunny here in LA today, finally, and I'm just beaming. My smile is just full of sunshine.
I'll tell you what, it's been a little cool. It's been a little bit unseasonably cool here in California, but I love it because my Canadian DNA, I really like the cooler weather. I don't like it when it gets too hot, but apparently the tide is turning. Hey, listen, guys, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about here today, and I'm going to let you guys know, too, that as we talk about our topics, I want to hear from you guys about, and I want you to share your thoughts with everybody else about your thoughts or opinions on any of the topics we're going to discuss here today. When we come across a topic we're talking about, if you got an opinion, I want you to jump on Twitter and tweet out your opinion on that topic using the hashtag TJC Show. That's send out your whole opinion and put in the hashtag TJC Show. And a little bit later, after the movie news feed, I'm going to pick out some of my favorites. And remember, don't ask questions in those. Just send out your opinion on something, and we're going to visit some of those tweets that you guys send out. All right. With that down and out of the way, we got a couple things to talk about here off the top. And I'm going to start with Brightburn. Folks, going to let you know right now, I'm not going to explicitly give spoilers for Brightburn here, but I'm going to talk about a couple of concepts, I guess, that are involved with Brightburn that could be considered a little bit spoilery. So I just want to give you that warning now. If you haven't seen Brightburn yet and you want to be completely clean going into that movie, you might want to put me on mute for a minute until we move on to the next topic, okay?
Oh, man.
Yeah, so... All right, so with that little bit of a warning given, and I'm not going to spoil the whole ending or anything like that, but most of the stuff I'm going to mention you've gleaned from the trailers. I finally got around to seeing Brightburn last night. And you guys know how excited I have been for this movie ever since that first trailer dropped. Like, I have been jumping up and down in my seat over Brightburn. I went to go see it last night, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts here. As a little indie horror film, it works on that level. As a little indie horror film, it works on that level. But what I was really disappointed by with Brightburn was that concept they introduced us to, Rob, in the trailer,
Yeah.
it doesn't move beyond it. There's literally nothing else to the movie. That's it. That's the whole movie right there. And I kept expecting something to happen, something that gave us either some kind of subplot. There are no subplots in this movie. It is the one story. That's it. I was expecting something that wasn't expected. It wasn't. It was all just there. And here's the main problem I had with it. Now, listen, it sounds right now like I'm really dumping on the movie. I still walked out having had a pretty mildly good time just because it's a cool indie-style pure horror film. On that level, it works. But, and here's the part that could be a little bit spoilery for some people. You may consider this a bit spoilery. So just being warned here. There is nothing that stands in this kid's way in the movie. Like, whenever there's a superhero movie, right? There are obstacles the superhero has to overcome, right? There's something there that challenges the main protagonist, whether the protagonist is a good guy or a bad guy, whatever. There's something there that challenges them. There's a hurdle they have to get over. There are roadblocks that they've got to get around and navigate. There's none of that in this movie for this kid. It's just that we know from the trailer, this is a kid with the powers of the gods, and he goes bad. We know that from the trailers. But that's it. That's like, and again, I don't want to go into too many details because I don't want to give too much of the movie away. Again, as an indie horror film, there's some great moments that harken back to James Gunn's like trauma days that you kind of just find a little bit delicious. But I got to say, I walked out of Brightburn going, that was worth seeing. But I was expecting and hoping for so much more. I do got to admit, I wouldn't try to dissuade anybody from seeing it. again, I walked out going, that was pretty enjoyable. But I got to admit, the trailers, man, you know, Rob, like our expectations been through the roof.
Yeah. I chalk it up to what I call the impossible premise, which means the first time I ever felt this way was when I saw the movie Cube 20 years ago, and then Lost. I think the Netflix show that's running now, The Society, and now Brightburn. The premise is great, escape room, but how could it possibly be? You know, you're waiting for some kind of explanation. Like you said, you're waiting for an obstacle. You're waiting for something, a more of an explanation, I would guess, and they never provide one. And it so the premise can't go beyond the initial setup. There's nowhere for it to go. And with Brightburn, having not seen it, I would imagine the kid doesn't grow up and take over the world. You know, he doesn't, where does it, I want to know where it goes. Does alien parents show up like in a Star Trek episode and say, oh, we're sorry, it's Charlie X. We gave him this power. We didn't think he would go
Ray's
nuts.
Parents. Ray from Star Wars' parents are this kid's parents too. There, I just gave the whole damn thing away.
But should I see it? I want to see it.
I would, well, look, knowing that you appreciate good, like, indie horror kind of stuff, yeah. Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of people that'll come out of it with a bit of an appreciation. I think, though, if they just added anything that provided a journey for the lead character, any kind of obstacle he had to overcome, any kind of challenge he had to face, anything that gave us a journey for the character would have made this movie infinitely better, because it's such a great concept, and they do handle it on an indie horror level so well. I just really feel there was, I mean, this is the movie. That's it. That's all you need to know.
It's a premise that doesn't go anywhere.
And I just wish they had given a little bit more something for the character to get from point A to point B than they did. And yeah, so again, I still say see it. It's just that my ridiculous, this is going to be one of my 5 favorite movies of the year kind of hopes kind of got dashed a little bit. So anyway, that's just my quick thought on Brightburn. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the movie because you've been messaging me saying, John, have you seen Brightburn yet? Jump down in the comments section or fire off something on Twitter and let me know what you guys think about all that without giving too many spoilers away, of course. Okay, with that down, let's move on to another off the top, Rob, and it's another thing that I've got a problem with. You know, Rob, right now, John Wick Chapter 3 is in theaters at the moment. And you know I love it. Yeah. I think it's the best of the franchise. I had a really good time with number 2 is solid as well. I didn't think it was quite as good as number 1. Number 3 came in, blew every expectation I had out of the water. But I wanted to throw this by you, Rob. And we're not going to give away anything specifically that happens in John Wick 3, so don't worry, no spoilers.
Did you order the John Wick hot toy figure? Is that what you're going to tell me?
No, but I'm going to wait to see yours. Once I see yours, and I might give in and get myself that thing. As I'm watching John Wick 3 again, though, I remember watching John Wick 2 and having a little itch in the back of my brain, like something's not right. And then watching John Wick 3, I had the same feeling again. There's something that's bothering me. And for the longest time, I wasn't able to put my finger on what was bothering me. What's that little itch? Because in the midst of all this pure, insane enjoyment and fun, most fun I've had in a movie theater this year, and that includes Endgame, most fun I've had in a movie theater this year, as I'm just soaking it in and enjoying, there is still this little nagging thing in the back of my head that something's out of place, something's wrong. And Rob, I finally realized what it was. I finally realized this is what's bothering me. And it wasn't until I came home and popped on the original John Wick again to watch a little bit of it. And as I was watching the original John Wick, the epiphany lights went off. And I realized this is what's bothered me about the sequels. You ready? This is the thing that's bothered me about the John Wick sequels. Tell me if you guys agree or not. In the first John Wick movie, one of the things that made it so, the atmosphere of the movie so great and so wonderful, and I still think the very best part of John Wick Chapter 1 is when the Russian mafia boss is trying to figure out, why is this, whoever that hurt my kid, why are they still alive, blah, 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 blah. Who cares that he stole a car? It was John Wick's car. Russian mafia boss. Oh. That moment in John Wick for me, when that mafia boss goes, oh, that was the whole movie to me. John Wick is the Baba Yaga. John Wick is the thing that goes bump in the night. John Wick is the scary story that assassins tell their children when they're going to bed at night. He is a myth. He is an icon. He is revered and he is feared. And that whole context was part of what made John Wick so incredible, because everybody knew. Entire gangs of hundreds of men knew if John Wick comes through that door, we're all dead men. You know, that sort of thing. And I realized that concept in the John Wick films has completely been abandoned. Like, yeah, we get the Iron Chef say, man, you're a legend, man. I really respect you. Okay, that's great. But I remember as I went back through John Wick 2 and John Wick 3, there is no fear. There is no momentary pause of reverence. It's like, oh, there's a bounty on somebody. Cool, let's go kill him. It's John Wick. No, thanks. I'm going to go fishing. Like, there's none of that in the sequels that followed up. And I remember watching John Wick 2 and John Wick 3 going, what is it? Something's bothering me here. What is it that's bothering me? And that's the thing. I finally put my finger on it that bothered me. The boogeyman, the Baba Yaga, the whole thing, the mystique of John Wick, which you would think that reputation would only now be heightened for the fact that he came out of retirement, killed hundreds, if not thousands, of men in the span of a couple of days in New York City, and yet the mythology of John Wick has disappeared from the movies. And I think that's the thing that bothered me. So, Rob, I don't know if you've had it all the same experience. I don't know if that's bothered you or bothered anybody. Maybe it's just bothering me. But since that's an element that made me love the first John Wick so much, it's really been noticeable to me, despite how much I've loved the follow-up films. It's that aspect has really been noticeable to me. What do you think about all that?
Well, I think it's a very astute observation, John. I think you're absolutely right about that. Another thing, I would go even further and say, in the first John Wick, not everybody is part of this super secret organization.
Yes.
And by the time you get to John Wick 3, it's like the entire world is only populated by assassins and people that work for Larry Fishburne, and like it. Whereas the first John Wick takes place in the real world, like he even goes and gets gas,
right.
You know, so he's not living in fantasy land. Now, I understand that John Wick 2 and 3 basically take place over the same couple of days. I get that. But I think part of what you're seeing is that mythology comes out of a real world awareness, you know, and now when the real world has been pulled away and now we only exist in this crazy, like, it doesn't matter where you go to the New York Library and, oh, John Wick's got stuff stashed away in a book. I mean, every place you go on the planet Earth is connected to this assassin's
and whatever
criminal
street corner he walks down, regardless of what country in the world it is, 18 of the people on the corner are employees of the high table.
And what they've done is and I think it's a problem that actually permeates many franchise movies, is that it's like what happened to the Matrix films. In Matrix 2 and 3, the everyman, the real world, was completely forgotten. And really, the Matrix movies were really about liberating all of humanity, but we never saw the man on the street anymore. I mean, when the Matrix begins, Keanu Reeves is he has a kind of a dead-end job at a software company, and it was the transition that Neo made after he got red-pilled out of the Matrix.
I like that.
And the same thing is true of John Wick. Now we're just in fantasy world. And even the crime boss, the crime boss played by
It's not going into too many details, though.
No, but I mean in the first John Wick.
Oh, yeah.
The crime boss was part of the normal mafia, you know, like the Russian underworld. He wasn't really a part of the high table, he was
the
just
continental mythology.
Yeah, he wasn't part of that. He was outside of that. In the continental mythology, those were the guys that the Russian boss would call if you need help. But now apparently, even at the Continental, it's full of hundreds of people. I mean, there's how many assassins do you need in New York City living at the Continental? I mean, apparently the whole world. And I think what you're feeling is exactly right.
Again, I just wish I hope as we move into John Wick Chapter 4, because the only line, like in John Wick Chapter 3, we see in the trailers, like, what do you think his chances are? Well, every hitman and assassin in New York City out to hunt him? 50-50. Okay, that's kind of the one allusion to the fact that John Wick ain't some spunky little underdog. You know, he's the Baba Yaga. He is the boogeyman. He is the thing that assassins cry themselves asleep thinking that he might be after them. And they got rid of that. And as great as John Wick 3 is, and I absolutely adore it, and I can't wait to watch it 10 more times. I do hope as they go into John Wick Chapter 4 that that's something they address. And they give us a little bit more of that again, because that was my favorite part.
But
of
also,
the whole
it's like
mythology.
every numbnuts in that movie. It's like every henchman decides to take on John Wick. Like there's hundreds of dudes. Like no one. Do you not know his reputation?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're chasing after John Wick, why do you think you can take him out if you're just some dude on a motorcycle?
Yep. Anyway, I do hope they get back to that in the main thing there. All right, guys, with that stuff down out of the way, let's go on now to our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys help pick them out by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. When you're there, fill out the form with your topic or question, hit submit, and maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. Now, of course, Ashley Whalen is still on her trip to the East Coast right now, and Kaori, my friend, was unavailable today. She's got clients today because she's a fitness trainer and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to read the questions myself. So we're going to get started off today with the first message today that comes to us from Vaughn McCulley, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. I went to watch Hellboy with a lot of optimism, and while I didn't flat out hate the movie, I felt really let down by it. Normally, stars don't admit their movie's failures until a lot later, so I was kind of surprised to see David Harbour admitting the film was a mess. He didn't admit to any fault on his part, but he did say the movie suffered from too many voices. What do you think he meant by that, and how much do you think it hurt the film overall?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Vaughn. And yeah, we've been talking a little bit lately about the unfortunate failure of Hellboy. Failure on several levels. One of the biggest box office flops in the history of the comic book genre. Number one, but also quality-wise. And I feel like you do, Vaughn. I didn't think it was the biggest dumpster fire of a movie I've ever seen, not at all, but it was a poor movie, and it was a bad film. Now, we've been hearing a bunch of things, and Robert, you've pointed out as well during the show about a lot of talk going on about the dysfunction between producers and director and all that kind of stuff there. Anyway, David Harbour was recently interviewed, and he kind of brought up the fact that, yeah, our film had problems. And this is what he said. David Harbour said the following. He said, "We did our best, but there's so many voices that go into these things, and they're not always going to work out. I did what I could do, and I feel proud of what I did, but ultimately I'm not in control of a lot of those things." So in that one sense, we see David Harbour talking about, yeah, movie had problems. I mean, I did everything I could do, but some other people had problems. What he was saying in terms of there's a lot of voices, that coincides with other stuff and rumors and some reports that have been coming from the set of Hellboy. Now, this is a report from Cinema Blend. I'm going to read this at length here because it sheds a lot of light on some things. This is what's written in Cinema Blend. Other issues that reportedly popped up during Hellboy included producer Lloyd Levin repeatedly interrupting Neil Marshall, that's the director, repeatedly interrupting Neil Marshall to give different directions, David Harbour, the actor, walking off set numerous times after refusing to deliver extra takes that Marshall, the director, wanted, multiple script rewrites, and perhaps most weirdly of all, disagreements over the design of a surreal tree. So this just goes deeper and deeper and deeper and gets uglier and uglier and uglier. Now, Rob, I got to say, there's a couple of things in here that I find pretty disturbing. Let's start with this one thing. The idea of the producer being on set and contradicting the director on set. Let's preface all this by saying, you and I weren't there. We didn't see this. We're simply taking this on the reports that we have coming out, which may not be accurate. Let's, for the sake of the discussion, assume for a moment that they are accurate, just for the sake of the discussion. This notion of a producer being on set and counter-directing whatever the director is saying at any time is some first-level bull. That cannot happen. Now, some of you might be saying, but John, I hear you say all the time that the producer is the boss. Yes, the producer is the boss. The producers and the director should meet together and get together on the same page and all that kind of stuff. But once you then put the wheels in motion, then once you've decided and all agreed on what it is you're doing with this movie and the movie you're making, once that happens and you set the director loose, you gotta let the director direct. You gotta let the director direct. This whole thing about showing up on, because once you show up on set and start contradicting the director in front of people, you've just completely cut the legs out from under the director. Now everybody's like, well, do I even need to listen to the director? I'll just go to the producer if I want something different, right? You've completely undermined the project. And look, if you don't like what the director's doing, then fire him. You're the producers, that's fine. Rob, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. I got along fabulously with my bosses at AMC. We had such a good relationship. We could be totally candid. Sometimes my direct boss and I, we would get into literally screaming arguments. I remember once he was visiting LA and we were in my place and we were screaming at each other so loud, I started to worry that the neighbors might call the cops. But we had that kind of trust with each other that we could just we could hash that out and have those arguments over the job, right? But I remember a couple of times that I even had to say, look, you hired me to build this thing and run this thing. You either like the way I'm doing it or you don't. So either get on board with what I want to do here or fire me. Because do me the courtesy of firing me, because this is what I'm going to do. Do not hamstring me and don't tie my hands. Don't give me the responsibility to build this thing and then limit my ability to do that. Either I'm your guy or I'm not. And I respect that if I'm not, but tell me if I'm not so I can go do something else, right? At some point, the producers are in charge, yes, but once the director's on set, you got to let him do his thing. But the thing I found really, really disturbing here, Rob, because I am a big David Harbour fan. You guys have heard me talk about this movie, Hellboy, and with all the problems I had with it, my constant refrain has been, but David Harbour is great as Hellboy. I love him in Stranger Things. I've always appreciated him in everything that he's done, and I'm a big fan of his. But to hear reports of him going, no, I don't want to do more takes, and walking off the set, know your place, kid. You're an actor. You're getting paid to be there on set to do your job. And if the director says you do another take, you do another flippin' take. And then to have the audacity to go out publicly and go, I mean, I did what I could do and I feel proud of what I did. Everybody else was at fault except me, while we've got these stories going around that you were walking off set because you didn't want to do any more takes when the director was telling you to do more takes. Rob, we heard that there were problems going on here, but this whole thing sounds like an absolute bloody mess. What do you make of this whole thing as you're seeing it play out?
Oh, I could spend an hour talking about this. But first of all, what happens on a movie set, a director has to think what I would call three-dimensionally. Like, let's take that tree, for instance. When a director is working with his production design team and they're coming up with a tree, the director isn't just looking at a picture of a tree going, oh, that looks good. He's thinking about how he's going to play with that tree in the edit room,
right?
Months from now. And a director has to keep all of these things straight. And what happens when you have people like producers on set, they're making knee-jerk decisions. They're not thinking three-dimensionally. They're not thinking about the edit bay. They're not thinking about how many pieces of coverage they're going to be shooting. And being a director, you have to keep all of this in your head. People say it's the vision of the director. But, when you have people that are making knee-jerk decisions like, oh, I don't like what that looks like. Look, by the time you get to a set and you have say a tree, that is not the time to start to make changes. Movie making is a process, and a director is leading a team of people on a set. The makeup and effects, the makeup and hair people have to know what the director wants. The physical effects people have to know. The director of photography has to know. The grip and electric have to know. Everybody has to know what's going on a set at all times so they can anticipate what the next setups are going to be and how they're going to make their day. You have an entire team of people, and there's planning that goes into this before you get on set. So if you have a producer, a rogue producer, who's suddenly making decisions on set, it is the most disruptive and damaging thing that can happen on a movie set. It's true of anybody, really. You must have a strong director because the crew needs to... You have one day as a director to win your crew. Actually, you have until lunch on the first day. The crew itself has to believe in you as a director and to know what you want and to know what your vision is, because they are there to facilitate that vision. And if the vision gets somehow broken apart or diluted by other voices on the set, you lose your crew, and that means you've lost your film. That's like your crew is a Titanic. And if the director, who's the captain, somehow does not have a strong enough voice, then you hit the iceberg and your Titanic takes on water and you will sink. And I think Hellboy is a perfect example of what happens when a director is undermined and the machinery of motion picture production is compromised.
Yeah, and I would just like, you know what? Sometimes projects go wrong, and sometimes visions clash, and sometimes there's miscommunication, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. And, you know, I've been really critical of Kathleen Kennedy in the past for the biggest failures I believe she's had as running Lucasfilm is the inability to get on the same page with their directors before things go wrong. But hey, at least I'll say this. At least she identifies it at some point, makes a change, and then gets in a director she can be on the same page with. At least that happened. That didn't happen with Hellboy. Clearly, there was a disconnect between the director and the producers, and then that dysfunction spread apparently to the cast as well. And I just wish David Harbour would have come out and said, you know what? We tried, but we hit some bumps that we weren't able to overcome, and we gave it our best. And we acknowledge that there are problems with the film and not everybody loves it. Just leave it at that instead of throwing everybody else under the bus. Well, I know I'm proud of everything I did. I just would have, especially as a fan of his, I would have liked to have seen him do that. But hey, it went wrong. And well, they live and learn. They live and learn, and then they move on. All right, speaking of moving on, let's get on to the next main topic here today. And the next main topic today comes to us from Jen Stuman, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. Absolutely love the show. Thank you so much, Jen. My favorite movie this year so far has been John Wick 3. I haven't seen Aladdin yet, but I'm really excited for that one. You guys mentioned you expected John Wick 3 to be the most successful one of the franchise, but it just became the highest grossing John Wick film in just 10 days. Why do you think this one has taken off so much better than the previous ones did? Thanks for the show." All right, thanks a lot for the message, Jen. And yes, John Wick Chapter 3, we already talked at length about the fact that it was by far the biggest opening weekend it's ever had. And now it's become the most successful out of any of the John Wick franchise in just 10 days in the box office. Let's just go over and take a look here in context. The first John Wick film, now these are worldwide numbers, domestic and international. The first John Wick film made $88.8 million. The second John Wick film just about doubled it at $171.5 million. And now John Wick Chapter 3, in just 10 days of release, made $182 million. Rob, we are just seeing this thing continue to climb up the ladder, to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger and more success. I've already talked about how much I love this damn film. Anyway, you see these numbers. Let me ask you two things. Number one, are you surprised by the rate of success it's having? And number two, what do you attribute, where a lot of franchises will do this, we're seeing just John Wick do this, what do you attribute that success to for the John Wick franchise?
Well, I think for a lot of these, I consider John Wick to be, and this is not disparaging at all, a lower budget B movie that's very well made.
That's its heart. That's its heart.
Absolutely. And when these movies, these aren't the movies that, say, mass audiences necessarily turn out for at first. But what happens is, once they finish their theatrical run, they go on to streaming services, they go into basic cable, or they go on to, I still love my physical media. and people who hadn't seen the movie see these movies. And the people that might not have known how good they are. And remember, these movies aren't playing necessarily everywhere, depending on how many theaters they're getting. So there's places that didn't even get John Wick at a theater near them because the movie wasn't big enough to begin with.
Right.
And so the ancillary markets allow people to see these films that wouldn't normally see them, and yet there are people that are interested and would like them, and they see them, and it develops a reputation. The same thing happened if you look at the box office of the first Terminator, which came out in 1984, and then Terminator 2, which was 91, I think?
Somewhere around there.
91. Well, Terminator 2 was the first $100 million movie. They invested $100 million into making it, and it was made very quickly. They did that because they knew, because of home video and cable, that Terminator had a huge audience that was waiting to see more. So Terminator 2 was a huge investment. That's the same thing that happens to John Wick. More people see it, more people get excited, more people like it, more people internalize it. And this is a perfect example of that kind of a movie when everyone's excited. Who doesn't want to see John Wick now?
And I think it's a great, we often talk about cautionary tales. This is an optimism tale?
It is.
An optimism tale that if you make your franchises with quality and you continually to make good, and I know everybody tries to make good movies. I understand that. But if you do continue to make quality films that people enjoy and want to come out to, there is a long-term effect. Not only will you get more box office for this movie because there'll be more word of mouth and everything, but you lay out the groundwork for future success because you're getting all these people who are loving this movie. So when you put out the next one, hopefully it'll come out, and we're seeing this. This is why I think Shazam was still a big win for Warner Brothers. Like, it barely broke even. It made a tiny bit of money. So yeah, it could have made more money, absolutely. But I believe Shazam is going to pay off for Warner Brothers down the road because the critics really enjoyed it. The fan scores have been really good. Maybe they didn't get all the money for this movie, Shazam, but I think they laid the groundwork for future, and that's the kind of example I think we're seeing in John Wick. So good on them. I hope they get more success and bring on John Wick Chapter 4. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Matthew Lustig, who writes, whenever we hear about directors going back into the editing room to work on their movie a little bit more, it usually means they're going to cut it down a bit. Quentin Tarantino just said that although his movie right now is about 2 hours and 40 minutes long, he's talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's probably going to recut it to make it longer than it played at Cannes. Do you think the success of Endgame at 3 hours has made Tarantino rethink his movie's length? All right, so for those of you who don't know what it is that Matthew is talking about, Quentin Tarantino in his new film with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just debuted at Cannes. Great reviews, people loved it, and it came in at a brisk 2 hours and 39 minutes. He then did a little bit of an interview to say, yeah, I think I'm going to add a couple more scenes. He's going to make it longer. Do I think that the 3 hour runtime of Endgame has anything to do with this? No. This movie isn't Endgame. I don't think it has anything to do with it because, by the way, this wouldn't be the first time that Quentin Tarantino has done something like this. I believe in Inglourious Basterds. You might want to correct me here if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think he debuted Inglourious Basterds at Cannes and then went and did a quick re-edit and added more length to the film before. So this isn't new for Quentin Tarantino. As a matter of fact, he seems to use this thing as an opportunity to get it in front of big, significant, main, important audiences, engage it a little bit and go, all right, before I put it in theaters, let me put in a few things here, lessons I learned by watching it play it at the festivals. So I don't think this is anything new, so I don't think it's connected at all to Endgame. Rob, you hear about him wanting to add time to this movie. That's already a pretty long 2 hours and 39 minutes. Do you think this is a good move for him?
I do. Look, there's nothing that's more telling than playing your movie in front of an audience of people. You learn more about the film, and remember, a lot of people are under this impression that by cutting a movie down, I hear this all the time as a film editor, if you cut something down, it's going to get tighter, it's going to get better. That's always
the goal. That's the idea.
That is, you always want to make it better, but that doesn't necessarily make it play better. What you want to do is you want to involve your audience with your characters in the story, and sometimes adding little bits of story nuggets make the movies even more compelling. I have seen shorter versions of movies that are frankly not nearly as good, and they're boring. They're frankly boring because you're not engaged as much because your brain doesn't have as much to follow. And with Quentin Tarantino movies, which are these rollicking, sort of sprawling narratives, maybe he needs a little bit more of that flavor. He needs a little bit more of that Tarantino sauce to make the movie feel more delicious. And I can see that happening. I mean, it goes against necessarily conventional wisdom. But like the first time I screened Tango Shalom, the movie I'm editing, I'm like, oh, I had thoughts of things I wanted to cut. I knew, great, now I'm going to cut 10 minutes out of this movie. I wouldn't have known it until we screened it in front of an audience. And once we did, it was like, oh, this works. And I had ideas because you can feel, when you're a filmmaker and you're sitting in an audience, even if the audience isn't like cheering, you can feel their response.
Yeah.
You can feel it. And you're like, oh, that's got to go. or if a joke doesn't land or something, just you can feel it's really weird. It's palpable, but it's true.
I can very well said, sir. Very well said. What do you guys think about Tarantino adding more length to his film to a movie that's already almost 2 hours and 40 minutes? Jump down the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And the fourth main topic today comes to us from David H., who writes, "Hey, John and crew. I just read a story from MovieWeb that said Kathleen Kennedy said in an interview that the character spin-off movies are done at Lucasfilm. This is disappointing to me because I was hoping for a Kenobi movie or something. I think the move has to do with the hit they took for Solo. What do you think? Do you think they still will make character movies, but maybe for Disney Plus?" All right, thanks a lot for the message there, David. And this has been a story that's actually been floating around for a number of days now. And we've seen a number of headlines running in this that Kathleen Kennedy says the individual spin-off movies are dead, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. The question, though, is, did she really actually say that? Now, where all these stories and headlines are coming from stems from one piece that was done, I believe, in Vanity Fair is where this came from. And this is where all this is coming from. Here's the quote that this is all coming from. Okay. This is from Kathleen Kennedy. "I think there is a larger expectation that Disney has," Kennedy said. "On the other hand, though, I think that Disney is very respectful of what this is. And right from the beginning, we talked about the fragility of this form of storytelling because it's something that means so much to fans that you can't turn this into some kind of factory approach." She added, "You can't even do what Marvel does necessarily, where you pick characters and just build new franchise around those characters. This needs to evolve differently." Now, this is what Kathleen Kennedy has said. And all these, this right here is where all these stories are coming from. So what has basically happened here, Rob, is that people have taken something that Kathleen Kennedy said, interpreted what it is she was saying, drew a conclusion of what it is she was saying, and moved forward. Now, I don't necessarily think they're all that far off. Because look, when I read those quotes, what I see is that maybe Lucasfilm never wanted to do 1 or 2 movies a year. What I see being implied here is that Disney, the machine that Disney is, with this massive success they've had with 3 or 4 Marvel films a year, that maybe it was Disney that put on a little bit of pressure that says, hey, look, we just spent over $4 billion to buy the rights to Star Wars. We're building this Star Wars Galaxy Edge at more money than most countries in the world are worth. We're doing all this. You need to start putting out more movies. That's what I kind of implied from that. And it seems like she was saying, we need to make Star Wars movies event films. Star Wars shouldn't do individual small chapters. We need to make Star Wars movies events films, which is where I see people then drawing these conclusions that what she's directly saying is, we're not going to do these small character spin-off films anymore. I think it should be made very clear. Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm have never said explicitly, we're not going to do these smaller spin-off films anymore. She's never said specifically, oh, all those rumors about a Obi-Wan movie? Nah, that's dead. No, that's not it. She's never come out and said that. So let's be very, very clear there. But I can give a little bit of leeway to these sites that are running these headlines because there does seem to be a little bit of an implied message in there. Rob, you've read this now. You've heard this. What's your takeaway from what Kathleen Kennedy has said? And do you think a lot of these sites running these headlines are justified in doing it?
No, I don't think. Look, well, what people don't, all the fan sites, the movie pundit world that we live in, we think business is done one way, and it's really not. I mean, it's based on. First of all, what they can't quantify is they can't understand. They're looking at spreadsheets. Rogue One made over $1 billion. Rogue One was a Star Wars story. It worked. The only other Star Wars story they've made, Solo, which didn't work that well. In their minds, on their spreadsheets, they're thinking that Solo and Rogue One are the same.
Right.
They're the same. They're not making any kind of, well, why didn't Solo work and Rogue One did work? Why? They're not taking into consideration the understanding that if you'd come out of the gate with, say, a Kenobi trilogy, and you had Ewan McGregor come back and play Obi-Wan Kenobi, that gives it, in the fans' mind, and my mind too, a legitimacy. Because you've got the same actor, even though it's not Alec Guinness, but we had him in the prequel trilogy. So we know that Ewan McGregor is Obi-Wan Kenobi. For the Star Wars audience, you can get away with having Ewan McGregor play Obi-Wan Kenobi, and people would accept it. From the very beginning with Solo, by saying, well, you can't have a young Harrison Ford in it, but by recasting Han Solo, which we just saw in The Force Awakens, there was no possible way you were ever going to get the entire fan base to embrace that movie, no matter how good it is, because it's not Han Solo. You're watching a movie, you've been watching Han Solo for 40 plus years, and now you're asked to watch a movie with Han Solo that isn't Han Solo, no matter how good it is. It doesn't matter. It isn't Han Solo. It's fake Han Solo. Whereas, if you made a Boba Fett movie, you got leeway. No one's going to be like, that's fake Boba Fett. No, they won't. Because you can tell that story. You bring back Ewan
Nobody's
McGregor,
saying that's fake Chewbacca right now.
No one's saying that's fake Chewbacca because Chewbacca looks like Chewbacca.
Yeah.
You know, that he looks just like Chewbacca. People don't say that's not Peter Mayhew. They don't think that because it's a human face recognition thing. Yeah. And I know it's weird, dude, but I believe that it's true. And when you're going to make a Star Wars story, you've got like Rogue One. We had the situation we knew. Like, ooh, how interesting. Where did these tapes come from? Where did the plans for the Death Star come from? You can introduce new characters. Then you throw in Vader and Princess Leia at the end. Spoiler alert. But so people bought it. Rogue One, you buy it. But Solo, as much as I liked Solo, I didn't 100% buy it. I could appreciate what they were doing. But it wasn't really Han Solo.
Like when I came out, I always, when people ask me about Solo, I go, you know what? Good movie, really fun space adventure movie, but I never said really good Star Wars movie. You know, but it is what Ron Howard did, inheriting the mess that he inherited, is stuff of legend. What I think what Ron Howard was able to pull together, never changed his release date, practically remade the whole film, and I think delivered a very entertaining movie. But I always think of it in terms of a really fun space adventure movie. I don't think of it as a Han Solo movie.
You know what has saved it? You know what has saved this movie Solo?
Harrison Ford?
Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford, and give him a wraparound. You know, or you show something that old Han Solo, like it would be a prequel to Force Awakens, but something that was going on in the young Han Solo part of the movie played into something that old Han Solo was having to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of like, I hate to say it, Godfather 2. You know, we know Vito
That's actually
Corleone.
a good example, yeah.
We see Vito Corleone as Marlon Brando. What do you do? What do you do with Godfather 2? You cast Robert De Niro as young Vito. Of course, Robert De Niro. No one ever said, well, that's not Marlon Brando. No one ever had a problem with Robert De Niro playing young Marlon Brando in Godfather 2. And you've got this wraparound story. And you've got Michael Corleone, you've got Al Pacino, who gives us continuity.
Yeah.
And then people buy it. And I never understood why with Solo they wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have said, how do you not have old Harrison Ford?
Well, because I don't think Harrison Ford was going to do it.
But if they had done that, that movie wouldn't have had as many problems as it did, and I bet it would have made a lot more money.
Well, I think, again, I don't think the movie had a ton of problems. I just think you have a problem of getting people interested in the first place, because it's a Harrison Ford less Han Solo movie.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are checked out of the idea, like you're saying, right off the bat because of that. And if Harrison Ford was in there and it was a future future black backflash, I think you would have had a hell of a lot more people on board with that.
You just go give it the Godfather 2 thing and have an interconnected story. And then once you buy Alden Ehrenreich as young Han Solo, then you get to make more movies, and you don't need old Harrison Ford because he's given the kid the blessing that not just in the real world, but in the fictional world
films
too
as well.
We've seen him.
I'll tell you this too, though, Rob. Reading Kathleen Kennedy's comments, this goes all the way back to my earliest days doing shows about Star Wars. I'm actually okay with the notion of one Star Wars movie per year, maybe even one Star Wars movies every 2 years. I do like the notion of Star Wars always being an event film.
Yep, I agree.
That's the Star Wars universe shouldn't be the MCU. It shouldn't be Avengers, Ant-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Avengers. It should be Avengers, 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 Avengers. It should be, every Star Wars film should be a major event. And I'm okay with that. I'm also okay if they want to try other things, that's cool, go ahead. But I do kind of like the idea of every single time a Star Wars movie comes out, it's an event. And maybe if they're getting back to that, maybe it's not such a bad thing.
But I mean, I would watch a Kenobi trilogy where
so would
you
I.
have every, and if it was really well written and it was really, you know, it harked back to we get to learn about the Jedi even after what happened. If it was great, and you're able to incorporate, Ewan McGregor would give it the authenticity it needed for the audience to buy off on it. Solo just didn't as much. I liked it, and I actually really liked it, but it didn't. I'm watching a movie where the main character is not the main character.
Yeah. All right, we got to move on here. I got a question for you guys, though, and this will be our question of the day to you. Do you guys think Lucasfilm should kill off any standalone spin-off movie ideas and just go with the big marquee ones? Or do you think, no, they should work in individual chapters as well? Give us those anthology stories as well. I want to know what you guys think. Here's where you answer it. Go over to my Twitter, where you can see my Twitter handle right here, just at John Campea. Going over there, it's the top tweet. Go in there, and the question of the day, the John Campea Show question of the day, should Lucasfilm kill any standalone Star Wars spin-off movies or continue to make them? You guys go in there, cast your vote. We'll check in on that in just a few minutes to see what you guys are saying. Okay, with that down, let's move on to our final main topic today. And our final main topic today comes to us from Maxie S., who writes, "Hey JC and crew, since Avatar 2 has been rescheduled and removed from Disney's 2020 slate, I don't see a film that will break $1 billion worldwide next year. Maybe Black Panther 2? Fast and Furious 9 without The Rock, Bond 25, Wonder Woman 84 are less likely. What do you think?" All right. Thanks a lot for the question, Max. And you know what? Here's what makes this question really interesting, is the fact that we're in 2019 right now, where this is just a stupid year. A Star Wars movie, Avengers, Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, Lion King. We just massive hit after massive hit. And by the way, a Marvel film already made, like Captain Marvel already made $1 billion. And we got a Spider-Man coming. Just massive hit after massive hit after massive hit. With there being no Star Wars movie in 2020, with Avatar being bumped out of 2020 for its, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's the 112th time Avatar's been bumped and counting. With that all out of there, are there actually any contenders to be a $1 billion film club? I'm going to propose there are. Let me throw a couple of films at you guys here, and I'm going to break these down into probably will make the $1 billion club, possibly make the $1 billion club, and dark horses. Unlikely, but keep your eyes on them, they may. Let me throw these by you. There are 3 films I believe will probably join the $1 billion club. The first one is Fast and the Furious 9. Look, the Fast and Furious franchise is on a roll, particularly if Hobbs and Shaw crowd pleases. If it pleases the crowd and people love it, that will build momentum going in the Fast and Furious 9, even without The Rock there. Although the Rock not being there is going to hurt it, but I still believe will probably be a $1 billion film. No guarantees though. I think Mulan. When you're talking about the international appeal for a film like this, Disney seems to be going epic in scale on this thing. Rob, you actually use the terminology. They could be thinking Oscar material with something like Mulan, something that big, that sort of a scale, the recognizability of the classic Disney film with the international appeal a movie like this could have. I believe, as long as the movie's good, it's a probability that Mulan's going to join the $1 billion club. Also, Minions 2. A couple of Minions films and Despicable Me movies have joined the $1 billion club. It's been a little while since we've seen the Minions. People still love the Minions. So I really don't see why not. That Minions couldn't probably join the $1 billion club as well. All right, so that's my probable list. Then I think you got some possibilities. Fantastic Beasts 3. John, I know what you're saying, John. The Fantastic Beasts films have been doing great. There's still a passionate Harry Potter base. If Fantastic Beasts 3 comes out and people love it, you could see a worldwide explosion for it. So it's possible. Not necessarily likely, but possible. I think Godzilla versus King Kong. Depending how well Godzilla King of the Monsters plays, Godzilla versus Kong could be a contender for the $1 billion club. Maleficent 2. Hey, look, that first Maleficent movie made a hell of a lot of money. Didn't join the $1 billion club, made a hell of a lot of money. Keep your eyes on that. I think Bond 25. It wasn't that long ago that we had a Bond film join the $1 billion club. It's a possibility. Wonder Woman 1984 came within a little bit of a breath of the $1 billion club before. We're coming off Shazam, which was well received by people. I think Wonder Woman 84 is something you got to say is a contender. The new Christopher Nolan film, Tenet. I think if it's a Christopher Nolan film, granted he hasn't put out a lot of billion-dollar films, but he's got some under his belt. I think you got to consider that. And if Dune is well received and comes out on the scale, I think that's got a possibility as well. Then a couple of dark horses. I don't think these are likely, as a matter of fact, but maybe we should keep our eyes on them. Sherlock Holmes 3 has some possibilities. Trolls 2, Birds of Prey, A Quiet Place 2, then 2 Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movies. Red Notice, I think, has got a lot of potential. And Jungle Cruise, which feels a lot like the Jumanji thing, and that thing made over $900 million, so why not? So I do believe there are some contenders going into 2020 of films that could be big enough to join the $1 billion club. Rob, you're looking at films like lists like I'm having here. What do you think will probably make it, could make that sort of thing? Do any really stand out to you?
Well, I think Fast and Furious 9, because the Fast and Furious franchise has been making over $1 billion. Wonder Woman certainly is going to be, if it's great, probably will surpass $1 billion. I mean, the first one did over 800 million.
Shazam was received well. Aquaman just did $1 billion. Why not Wonder Woman?
I could see that happening. I think Bond 25, I mean, both Skyfall and Spectre did, I believe, $1 billion worldwide, over $1 billion. So I could see that if it's good. You know, when is Jumanji 3 coming out, or the new Jumanji? I mean,
I think that's this year.
Is that this year? Okay.
Yeah, I believe that is this year.
But I think that's a pretty solid list that you put together. I mean, I don't see Trolls 2 making $1 billion, but you know, you just never know if it's really great and family audiences or. But I think it's a respectable list. I mean, I think what they were saying is that for Disney, does that mean that the writer who wrote in the letter that Disney itself doesn't have $1 billion movie coming out next year?
Well, I mean, they probably don't. Yeah. I mean, they're talking about all films. Yeah.
Yeah, the Marvel. I don't know, the standalone Marvel superhero movies. They don't have Captain America to cross $1 billion or Iron Man, so we'll see. But I don't know. It's a good list you made.
All right, guys, listen, we want to know, what do you guys think when you look at the list of films coming out in 2020? What are some that you think maybe could crack that code and join the $1 billion club as well? Let us know in the comments section below. Okay, guys, listen, with that stuff down and out of the way, we're going to move on to our live questions. But before we do, there are a bunch of other issues going on in the world of entertainment that we don't have enough time for to go into in depth as main topics, but we want to make sure you're caught up to date with everything going on. So right now, fact checker Jonathan would like to present to you today's installment of the movie news feed. Check it out.
First up, Warner Brothers and Clint Eastwood are teaming up once again, as the studio has closed the deal to acquire the rights to The Ballad of Richard Jewell from Fox Disney, with Eastwood set to direct. From Variety, there was a chance that the movie could have stayed at Fox Disney. Sources say that all parties involved, however, thought it best that the film make its way to Warner's, the studio that Eastwood has called home for years. The film tells the true story of Richard Jewell, a security guard whose life is turned upside down after media reports identified him as a possible suspect in the 1996 Atlanta Olympics bombing. Jewell reported on the knapsack bomb at the 1996 Summer Games and helped clear bystanders, only to find himself vilified and suspected of being involved in the terrorism plot. Jewell was cleared as a suspect 3 months later and died in 2007 of a heart attack at the age of 44. Jonah Hill and Leonardo DiCaprio had originally been attached to star, but they no longer will appear in the film. Their involvement will be limited to producing the film. Next up, Stranger Things viewers can expect the unexpected in the Netflix series' upcoming 3rd season, according to cast member David Harbour. From Deadline, the unexpected is hardly surprising for Stranger Things, but Harbour got a bit more specific. Harbour, whose chief Jim Hopper is the father of 11, played by Millie Bobby Brown, said the new season will examine the duo's relationship in more significant detail, with the season's 8th episode containing something unexpected and moving. The actor went on to say, "You get to see a lot of that throughout the season, and it's very unexpected what happens in the end, and it's very, very moving. I think episode 8 is the most moving thing we've ever shot." Season 3 of Stranger Things launches on Netflix July 4th. Next up, we have a brand new look at Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor in Terminator Dark Fate. It's been nearly 4 years since this franchise last took aim at the big screen with the maligned Terminator Genesis. From MovieWeb.com, that movie did feature the return of Arnold Schwarzenegger to his most iconic role, but that was just one piece of the puzzle. This time around, some of the other key pieces are in place, including Hamilton, who hasn't appeared in any of the movies since the beloved Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This latest look at the highly anticipated sequel sees Sarah Connor sitting in a wide open field. The image was shared with a very brief but effective caption that gets to the heart of the matter. She's back. From the early stages, this was billed as a direct sequel to T2, and it will ignore the events of all other sequels. Terminator Dark Fate is set to arrive in theaters on November 1st. Next up, in a film stuffed with kaiju, King Ghidorah is expected to be the biggest and baddest of the bunch. Despite being from another planet, Ghidorah is purposely humanized. From DreadCentral.com, the film's director and production designer Michael Dougherty and Scott Chambliss had the following to say. What Michael did was, he played on the very human characteristics. He played on characteristics that we associate with human beings, but he applied them to the monsters. Ghidorah, with his 3 heads, was an opportunity to have 3 different aspects of a generally similar character. It was important to me that each of Ghidorah's heads have a slightly different personality than the other. I love the idea that each head did sort of have its own personality and quirks, with the center being the alpha of the 3. He's the one who's sort of the big brother and the most serious. And then, the other 2 are just a little bit different. One head is slightly more aggressive and tenacious, the other one displays signs of curiosity. So, in a lot of ways, they're just like 3 triplets. King Ghidorah's 3 heads are played by Alan Maxon, Richard Dorton, and Jason Lills using motion capture technologies. Godzilla King of Monsters hits theaters May 31st. Next up, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, famous for playing Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones, has reunited with another Thrones cast member, Carice Van Houten, who played Melisandre in the HBO series. They both appear in the new film Domino, directed by Brian De Palma of Scarface and The Untouchables fame. The official synopsis goes like this. In a world racked by terror and suspicion, Copenhagen police officer Christian, played by Coster-Waldau, seeks justice for his partner's murder by an ISIS member named Imran. On the hunt for the killer, Christian and a fellow cop are unwittingly caught in a cat-and-mouse chase with a duplicitous CIA agent played by Guy Pearce, who is using Imran as a pawn to trap other ISIS members. Soon Christian is racing against the clock, not only seeking revenge but to save his own life. The film is available on DVD and Blu-ray now. And finally, director Paul Feig of Bridesmaids has lined up a reunion with his A Simple Favor star Anna Kendrick. The two will team up again for Love Life, a new romantic comedy anthology series for Warner Media's upcoming streaming service. From /Film, Love Life will consist of 10 half-hour episodes and be about the journey from first love to last love, and how the people we're with along the way make us into who we are when we finally end up with someone forever. Lionsgate TV is producing the series, which will follow a different protagonist's quest for love each season, with each half-hour episode telling the story of one of their relationships. Warner Media's streaming service is said to be launching sometime in late 2019. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.
And now you are all caught up to date with everything going on in the world of entertainment. Thank you to fact checker Jonathan for putting that together for us. Hey, listen, guys, before we get to our live questions, I want to go and check in. I asked you guys our question of the day. Should they be doing with these Star Wars movies? Should they continue to make standalone ones or not? Let's go over and take a look and see what you guys are saying right now. Almost 2,000 of you have responded already. And right now you're saying 33% of you are saying, nah, scrap the standalone individual things, keep them events. 67% of you, the majority of you are saying, nah, keep making them. That's what your guys' thoughts are on this issue right now. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Okay. Now, before we get into live questions, I also asked you guys to send in some tweets. Let me know what you think about any of the topics we're talking about here today. So let's go over and see what you guys are talking about. Let's see here. We got Jasmine Jones who writes, I actually agree with some of your picks of what movies will make $1 billion club, but what about Bad Boys 3? That could sneak up on us. We got to keep our eyes on Bad Boys 3. You're not wrong. Ryan Shannon writes, the more Star Wars, the better. I'll never get enough of it. So where we got to vote for keep and make more, as many as you can. Jan Nill writes, easy solution. Just have the standalone Star Wars movies come out on Disney Plus and leave the event Star Wars films for the big screen. Good idea, but there's not as much money to be made on Disney Plus. So I don't know if you can make that big of a budget stuff, but it's an interesting idea. Sir Ivan K. Bennett writes, I saw Brightburn more as a story of the parents and their dilemma. Like, how can you raise a kid that's bad / beyond your control? I think there is a cautionary tale in there, Sir Ivan. All right. And the last one we're going to look at here comes to us from Trey McValley, who writes, I agree with your John Wick points. However, to keep perspective, here are some points I try to remember. Number one, with John coming out of retirement, it could lead many to think they might fare better against him. Two, John killing a member of the High Table changes the level of opponents. Those are good points, man. Those are good points. So, all right, guys, thanks for sending those in. We'll hear from more of you guys on Twitter on tomorrow's show. All right. Let's now get on to the live questions. You guys have been firing in a whole bunch of stuff that you guys want to talk about, so let's get over there right now. And we're going to start things off here with, where are we at? Matsif Jada writes, how awkward is it to be at the premiere of a bad movie? It's awkward. It's a little bit awkward. I remember being at I was at the world premiere for the Valerian City of a Thousand Planets. And by the way, there's some good things about that movie. Visually, it's inspiring. Visually, not so great. And so you're meeting the filmmakers, and you don't want to lie to them, so you just avoid the topic altogether. So I've been to a few that's bad, and it is kind of awkward. I'm Upset writes, did I miss Condor Man spoiler discussion? Yeah, we did like 7 hours. Rob and I did like 7 hours on Condor Man. Can't believe you missed that. I'm upset. DC Patience writes, Aladdin was so much fun. Love Jasmine and Abu. I did too. I thought they were both. I love the monkey. I even liked what they did with Iago, to be honest with you. I liked what they did with Iago very much. Samuel C137 writes, you erase one forever, but the other grows stronger and louder. Movie petitions or people who complain about original films not existing? That goes to a thing, Rob, because I'm often talking about I've been hearing the lament and cry of people saying Hollywood doesn't make original movies anymore for a long time, to which I've been saying for years, guys, more original films get produced today than any other time in human history. You're just not going to see them, and you're just not going out to support them. And then I always open up a release schedule and I read through all the movies like, look, 80% of them are all original films. So what are we talking about? So you know what? I'm going to say, because I've lived with them long enough, I know how to tolerate it, so I'd rather keep that. Which one would you pick?
I want original films to keep coming down the pike. I think that's the most important thing. So
all right,
let's discard petitions.
Discard petitions. All right.
Petitions are so dumb.
Petitions are stupid. It's the height. I said this before, I'll say it again. The rise of entitled fandom making all these petitions now for everything they don't like, nothing screams entitled as much as that. I think it drives me absolutely
Somebody
crazy.
pointed out, they'd love to see 10 Game of Thrones nerds get into a room to try and rewrite the 8th season and watch the hijinks ensue.
It would be a disaster.
It would be a disaster.
All right, let's move on here. Let's see. Give Luigi a Ring writes, Robin Williams was truly a master, not just for comedic performances, 1 Hour Photo being the best psychological thriller role, chillingly charming. Hey, listen, I keep trying to tell you guys, I loved him in 1 Hour Photo. I really did. But you got to check out the Christopher Nolan film Memento. Not Memento, I'm sorry. Insomnia. That is the one film of Christopher Nolan's that whenever I mention, a lot of people go, what? Never heard of it. Al Pacino, Robin Williams, two-time Academy Award winning actress from Boys Don't Cry.
Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank, thank you very much. It's fabulous. Other than Dark Knight, it might be my favorite Christopher Nolan film. So you got to check that out. He's incredible in that.
And it's a remake.
And it is a remake. Dimsum05 writes, is there anything better than watching Captain Marvel fly through spaceships and stuff? I gotta admit, I love that effect. I think that looks really great when she does that. That end of Endgame, it was so great too, because as she's doing that, even Thanos is just sitting there like going, what the hell? Like, it was a great moment. I really do like those effects a lot. Jetfire97 writes, I believe that the characters at the Try this again. I believe that the characters at the end of Days of Future Past happy ending will survive the Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix will lead up to that. I don't know that I agree, Jetfire, because I said this before. I'll always say it. Fox, you can't say, well, any of the characters at the Days of Future Past happy ending can't die, because that would be out of continuity. You've got to remember, Fox has a philosophy when it comes to the X-Men films of continuity schmontinuity. And I don't even say that as a criticism, because it's worked for them. So just because you see some characters alive for the happy ending at the end, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. I believe Jean will die, and yet she's there at the end of Days of Future Past. I think Professor X is going to die. I don't know how many more of them will, but I think a bunch of them are going to bite the dust. What do you think? Do you think the fact that they're in the end of Days of Future Past saves them?
No, I think Jean's going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the end of the X-Men franchise. And Days of Future Past, I mean, remember, Jean died once before.
Yep.
You know, and I think she's probably going to die. And Days of Future Past kind of, it's a different future. It's an alternate future. Time is being played with. Who knows? It's quantum realm time travel. In the
it's just continuity schmontinuity is what it is. That's all it is. All right, let's move on here. Star Killer writes, heard that Ahsoka could be in The Mandalorian. I I guess you could. But here's why I would give credit to any rumor that suggested that, because Dave Filoni has an inexplicable hard-on for the Ahsoka character. Like, seriously, like I don't like the character myself.
It's pretty explicable, I think.
But he has this undeniable complete hard-on for that character. He believes that the Ahsoka character is the greatest character ever in the history of Star Wars, and he thinks the whole Star Wars universe should revolve around that character and all that kind of stuff. I'm not dumping on Dave Filoni. I love Dave Filoni, but I think that's a pretty damn weak character myself. And I know I'm in the minority when it comes with Star Wars fans when it comes to that. But yeah, if Dave Filoni's involved, he's going to do whatever he can do to try to find a way to make Ahsoka a part of it. But I don't know. Do you think we're going to see Ahsoka pop up in this thing?
I wouldn't. You know what? I didn't think Darth Maul was going to show up in Solo. So, and Dave Filoni's involved with the series. And if he does love Ahsoka as much as you say he does, why not? I think that'd actually be kind of cool continuity. I mean, bringing an animated character into live action like that. I mean, who's going to portray her? How is it going to go? I think it could be really cool. I'd be into it.
Let's see here. Ray Tracy writes, if Disney should ever continue to struggle with Star Wars, could they end up selling... Oh my God. Could they end up selling Lucasfilm Limited to another company, or could Lucasfilm possibly split from Disney? Okay, let's take a step back here, Ray. And I'm going to talk to you now, my friend, as if you're my best buddy. We're hanging out at a bar and we're getting into a debate on something, okay? So I'm going to give you a hard time here. All right, let's reflect for a second. Disney has put out how many films, Rob? Four Star Wars films?
They've put out, 4.
The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rogue One,
and
Solo. 3 of those 4 have joined the $1 billion club. 1 of those 4 is in the elite exclusive $2 billion club. And you're wondering if they continue to struggle? So again, I'm not throwing you under the bus, man. I'm jabbing at you like you're my buddy at the bar here, okay? Come on. Let's be serious. You put out 3 of 4 films that join the billion. 1 of them joins the $2 billion club. They're just opening. They just opened this month Star Wars Galaxy Edge, which is the biggest expansion stuff they've done at their Disneyland properties in years. They have futures planned and all this kind of stuff. No, they're not about to sell off Lucasfilm. There's no way they're getting ready to sell off Lucas. They have long-term plans for Lucasfilm and how it's integrating into everything they're doing. It's completely tied into what they're doing with their Disney Plus situation, which is the backbone foundation of everything they're doing as a future. And as far as could Lucasfilm possibly split from Disney, Lucasfilm doesn't have that option. They're owned. Lucasfilm doesn't have the choice to split off. They are owned by Disney.
John, how much money has Galaxy's Edge just made by preview shows?
Oh my God.
I mean, 4 hours. And let's face it, if you put 4 Star Wars movies that make, one makes $2 billion, one makes $1 billion, another makes $1 billion, one makes 300,000 or 400 million. On the average, they've all made over $1 billion if you average out the box office.
Yes.
I mean, so that's a win. That's a win.
Yeah, it's just not. You just got to understand that how much of Bob Iger has planned Disney's future around Star Wars and making Star Wars part of that. So no, it's not going anywhere, brother. It's not going anywhere. All right, Suthius writes, "Hey guys, when is the Snyder cut of Game of Thrones season 8 coming out?" I've seen so many joke about when's the Snyder cut of this movie or that movie, and it never gets old to me. It never gets old. Chris Feldman writes, so Disney Plus will have Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and Disney films, several new shows, and probably Disney Channel shows. Has other content been announced? Well, it's funny you ask that, Chris, because just the other day, it came out that McG has announced that he is developing a True Lies series for Disney Plus. Now look, we all know that the main reason everybody in film fan communities thinks that, the reason Disney bought Fox was so they could get X-Men back. I guarantee you they could barely give a crap about that. The main reason that they acquired Fox was for a library of content rights for their Disney Plus streaming service. And the first batter coming up to the plate is True Lies. So this is the first real indication we've got that they're developing some of the Fox-based properties for Disney Plus. So yes, you can expect to see a lot of that coming in the future. You can expect a lot of it, because that's really the main reason they spent $71 billion. They spent $71 billion not to buy an X-Men franchise that might be worth $3 or $4 billion. They spent $71 billion to get that huge library of rights specifically for their long-term plans for Disney+. So, yeah, you can expect to see stuff popping up in there, buddy. All right, Star Killer writes, choose any director to direct a Star Wars movie. Who you picking? Well, generally, I don't like X director to direct X movie thing, but I have had the same answer to this my whole life. It's the greatest filmmaker of all time. I want to see Steven Spielberg direct it. Rob, not just because he's the greatest filmmaker of all time, but because he is the most deeply connected to Star Wars out of any other director out there. He's like George Lucas's best friend. He has a deep and intimate connection. He's actually helped George Lucas on a couple of his films. Yeah, to me, George Lucas. Does any name pop up for you?
To do Star Wars?
Yeah.
I would love to see Christopher Nolan. I'd love to see George Miller. I'd love to see James Cameron. I'd love to see, gosh, who else would I love to see? I don't know. Those three are pretty good.
They're all good. Look, bottom line for me is any director who's good. If you got a talented director, I'm fine. But of course, I think there's an emotional attachment there for me to see Steven Spielberg do it. So that's just kind of my thought. All right. Frost 1977 writes, Fort Smith is in Arkansas, not the East Coast, and the AR River is at record flood levels at 15 to 20 feet from Tulsa to Little Rock, down Weber Falls. Okay is gone. I've been hearing like record rainfalls in everywhere other than California. I mean, it's nuts. Like I was talking to my mom, who is East Coast, and like we are getting more precipitation than like I can ever remember. So everybody who's out there, making sure you take care. It's such a foreign thought to anybody living in LA because we barely get any rain here. But everybody out there, guys, take care.
It's all flat there. I saw a picture this morning of one of the biggest employers in a town in I don't know if it was in Oklahoma or Arkansas, that this huge, just underwater.
Yeah.
Like, where are people going to work? How are they going to get their livelihood back?
Everybody, please take care. Please take care. Thanks for sharing that, Frost. All right. Murray Reich writes, hey, Rob, did you see Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I thought overall it was cheesy, but had some fun moments. Chemistry, bet them was great. Between them was great. Batman versus Shredder was cool. Rob, did you have a chance to check that out?
I have not had a chance to check that out, but I probably will get around to it at some point. It sounds amusing to me.
I got to admit, I'm probably not even going to check it out. I am notorious that, well, I love DC and I love Marvel. I'm not a fan of DC or Marvel's animated stuff. There have been a couple of things that I've enjoyed. The Doctor Strange movie I thought was great. Obviously, the Dark Knight Returns animated thing they did. Under the Red Hood was quite good, but it's very, very rare. I find everybody gets mad at me. I really find them to be quite awful. But and the Batman versus TMNT, I have no interest in whatsoever. But it's good to hear that you had some good thoughts on it, Murray. All right, I'm Upset writes, would you rather see Kraven in the MCU or the Venomverse? If you had asked me that question before I saw Venom, I would have said MCU. But the type of atmosphere they've built in that Venomverse, I gotta admit, I'm really damn curious to see him in that Venomverse. So I'm gonna lead Venomverse. What about you, Rob?
Well, I love Kraven. I mean, you can't. It depends where Spider-Man goes, because
right now Spider-Man is in MCU. Understanding that,
I would love to see a real formidable villain in the face, like Kraven is, take on Spider-Man in the MCU. I would really like to see that.
Well, you're gonna see it. It's because his name is Mysterio. So we're gonna see it. I would love to see Kraven the Hunter hunting Venom. I think that would be great to see. And I know they've done a little bit of that in the comic books. I would be absolutely beside myself to see that. But hey, I'm good. Cool. I'd be good with whatever they want to do here. All right, let's move on here. Yes. Okay, so Suthius writes, watching AMC spoiler review of Winter Soldier, we all reacted same way Mova did when the twist, oh my God, it's Bucky. I'll never forget that moment. I remember I just watched recently, you guys know my friend, Erin Cummings, the actress. I've had her here on the show a couple times. She had never seen Winter Soldier. And me and Ann had her and her husband come over, and we sat down, and her husband's an actor as well, and we sat down and watched Winter Soldier for the first time. And that, oh my God, Bucky moment was the same thing she had. So, but look, I have a hard time arguing. It's not my number one all-time comic book film, Rob, but there's a lot of people out there who consider Winter Soldier still to this day to be the best comic book movie maybe ever made. And while it's not mine, I have a hard time arguing with them against it because it's so beyond what a regular comic book movie is.
It's a terrific movie because it moves beyond its comic book origins. If it wasn't part of the MCU and it was just a movie and say Captain America was just a soldier, a CIA operative or something, it would still work like gangbusters.
Completely agree. All right. Next up, Willow Yang writes in, what role do you think the Flash will play in Star Wars? What role do you think Flash will play in Star Wars 9? I think he'll turn back time so that Luke, Han, Leia can prevent Kylo from turning. It's a big, giant crossover universe thing. I still like the idea. Somebody, I put up a thing on Twitter of Hulk doing the snap and then Luke reappearing. So that's my favorite kind of crossover idea. But did you ever see, Rob, the Patton Oswalt bit on Parks and Recreation when he does his epic 15-minute rant of MC Star Wars crossover?
Oh yeah. No, I've watched that many times on online. I loved it.
Oh, it was so good. And
I loved it.
Maybe they should follow Willow's advice here and maybe bring in a little bit of DC flavor into that as well. Just bring it all together. Why not? Hell with it. Just bring it all in together. It's Kane writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob, have you read the Dwarves series by German author Marcus Heitz? It's an epic fantasy series, and I couldn't recommend it more.
I have not. I have not read that series. I did read the most recent German sci-fi I read was The Swarm, which is a very interesting undersea. They're turning it into a TV series now.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm forgetting the name of the guy who wrote it, but it's funny. It's one of these. It was this giant, thick book that I want to say I bought 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But now I just read. It was just last month. They said they're turning it into a series. But The Swarm is really good.
All right, let's move on here. Chris Feldman writes, do you think people who sign petitions really expect the change to be made to a TV show or movie, or are just venting to let off steam? I think there's a good mixture of both. I think there are a bunch of people who are just like, meh. And let's face it, every once in a while, we all just need to face a wall and go, meh. Like we all do that, right? We have to from time to time. And I think for some people, that's just them going, meh. I also think there are some people who's like, I'm going to show them, and there's a little bit of that too. So I think it's a mix. And some of it's healthy, some of it's really not. Senior Eric writes, no, John, as soon as the HBO sound hits, I expect to hear the Sopranos intro. So what Eric's referring to is, I was been watching Chernobyl, and I've been getting caught up on Barry season 2 as well. But I'm still kind of locked into the mindset of when the static screen with whoa, the HBO sound comes up. My brain is still in the mode of when the screen goes black, I'm now expecting I'm expecting to hear Game of Thrones. But you're very right, Eric. I think for a very, very long time, a lot of people with their brains, it's totally tuned into Sopranos. I think you're right about that. Matsiv Jada writes, you were a visual effects artist like me, still do it ever? I would not say I was a visual effects artist. Like I did a little bit of stuff when our company needed it. Mostly, I was the client services director. Like I was the go-between between the client and the real artists in our company. Now, there were some times that I would do some roto-monkey work. There were some times I do a little bit of compositing. I do a little bit. One time I had to do an entire commercial. I had to do an entire 30-second commercial for a local phone company. Just because we were busy, our real artists were busy doing movie stuff. I think that's when we were working on Sin City. I think that's back when we were working on Sin City. Anyway, so I would know. I am not a visual effects artist. I know how to do some stuff, but I'm not a visual effects artist, nor have I ever been. I worked in the industry, but I was more of a producer, more of a client services guy, a go-between. So that was my role. I just have no artistic talent. I can't draw. God, my handwriting is sloppy. I mean, if there's Rob, I've always said this. If there's one thing in the world I wish I could do that I have absolutely no talent in whatsoever, there's not much I wouldn't give to be able to draw. I've always wanted to be able to draw, and I can't draw worth shit.
I can't either, but you can do something I've always wanted to do, which is play the guitar.
Well, but you know what? I would trade it. I would give up being able to play guitar, piano, saxophone, whatever. I would give it all up just so I could be able to draw something moderately well. People who can draw, I'm like, oh my God. I think it's like to me, when somebody draws something that's amazing, they show it to me, it's like I just saw Superman shoot lasers out of his eyes. I'm just like, I'm in awe of people who can draw. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, I wish I had that gift. I just don't. Where are we at here? All in Avir writes, if Cap lifted Mjolnir in Avengers Age of Ultron, he ruled Asgard. No, he did not. He didn't want that. And what? In Endgame, he just thought, let's try now. He already knew he was worthy. Thor 2. No. If you're able to lift... The enchantment that Odin put on Mjolnir was, whoever wields this hammer, be they worthy, shall be the new king of Asgard. He says, whoever can wield this hammer, be they worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Didn't say you possess the birthrights of Thor. Doesn't say you become the ruler of Asgard. Didn't say anything like that. So just be very clear about that. There is a distinction. Evan Taman writes, sure, kidnap the humans, destroy the machine. Rob, you got
I don't know what that is.
Oh! I think Short Circuit. I think that's Johnny Five in Short Circuit.
Oh.
One or two. I'm going to flip a coin and guess two, but I think that, you guys know if I'm wrong about that, but I believe that, sure, kidnap the humans, but destroy the machine. I think that was Johnny Five. Jump in the comment section. Let me know if I got that one. All right. Patrick Conway writes, so there's a small movie with David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, Florence Pugh, led by Scarlett Johansson, maybe coming next year. Great cast. Yes, that is coming next year. Widow. Why didn't we bring it up in our potential billion-dollar films for next year? Because as of right now, it hasn't been officially dated, has it? Like, we know
I don't think so.
There are dates being held, but they've never officially said. So I don't think Widow's a billion-dollar film either. I think it's a $700 million film. I think it's a big, successful movie. I don't think it's a billion-dollar film, though. Rob, do you?
I don't either. But again, it could be.
Oh,
we
sure.
haven't seen it.
Well, we might see the first trailer and go, oh my God, this is going to make all the money. Like, who knows? From a starting position, I don't think it's a billion-dollar film, but let's wait and see when the trailers actually come out. Okay. Patrick Clare writes, watched Winter Soldier again, and it made me think, how in the hell are we going to live in an MCU without Captain America? Maybe the multiverse solves this. Again, another reason why I hate multiverse. Time travel and multiverse to me is complete crap. Complete garbage. I hate it. Not that it can't be used well, because we've seen examples of when it's used really well. And I trust Kevin Feige. But it is really hard to imagine an MCU without Captain America. That's tough. And I mean, there are other characters. We move on, but it is tough, Rob. Is it difficult for you as well to imagine this MCU, which has kind of been built around Tony and Cap for 10 years, to not have those characters? It's tough.
No, it's weird. But then again, we're going to get characters like the Eternals, and the Deviants, and all.
But are people going to gravitate to those characters like they did for Iron Man and Cap? I'm not saying they're not, but I wonder.
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. As a comic book reader, I've lost characters before, and I like to see what happens and where they're going to go. It's going to be. I'm fascinated by what the MCU is going to do with all these television Disney Plus spinoffs, and it's going to be really interesting to see, because they couldn't continue. The idea that they were going to continue on and make these $2.5 billion movies was absurd. They did it for 11 years. It's never been done in the history of cinema. So I'm curious to see their new direction, because they needed one. It was untenable, the current money. As
Star Trek The Next Generation would say, all good things. All good things. All right. Zach Bartrand sends in a really generous super chat. Thank you so much for that, Zach. Sends a super chat, says, one of two. I love what movies can do. I was watching The Mummy Returns over the weekend. It's been a while since I've watched that. The Mummy Returns over the weekend, and I was transported back to seeing it in theaters as a 6-year-old. I love that feeling. As a 6-year-old, and it being my first time experiencing a surround sound system, because I thought those bugs were actually all around me, and I remember having my feet on the chair most of the movie. Dude, that is one of the most magical elements of movies that I don't think I talk about enough. I talk a lot about it as a place that movies tell stories. They reveal how we see the world, how things are, the way we wish they would be, our dreams, our goals, our fears, our aspirations, our apprehensions. I mean, it's all that. It gives us momentary reprieves as a place to change our focus and change our perspective of the world and all that kind of stuff. But one of the true and great shared experiences with people, one of the great things, though, is its ability to instantly transport us to a different time and place in our lives. Because when I see Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, whenever I see it pop up on a screen, I am instantly transported back to the year it came out, being in my favorite movie theater in Ancaster, Ontario, which is part of Hamilton, Ontario, called the Ancaster Silver City Theaters, with the friends that I was with at the time. And I'm instantly transported to the conversations we had in the foyer while we were getting our popcorn and sitting there and like being in awe and wonder. And I love that. That's like movies. I'm gonna not go off on a big tangent about why I love movies so much, because I can go off on it all day. But that ability to transport us, Rob, to take us to another time in another place, that's one that's really, that's one of the most special elements to me. Do you have any like fond memories of like seeing a movie and it taking you back to another time?
Well, I did. Yeah, I talked about this weekend the first time I saw Star Wars, and I can't watch Star Wars or Empire and not think about when I saw those movies, because it was such a defining moment in my life. Also, when I saw Aliens, I saw Aliens at the Cinerama in Seattle. It wasn't the Cinerama Dome, but it was a screening, I want to say it was like 2 weeks before it opened, and I was with a guy named Dan Ireland, who later became a studio executive, and he directed movies in his own right, but he had run the Seattle International Film Festival, and I think there might have been some drinking involved, but there wasn't a lot of us in this theater. It was all the Seattle film community there. And by the end of the movie, when Ripley's taking on the alien queen, he was like screaming at the top of his lungs in the theater because he loved it so much.
Nice.
And he's no longer with us anymore. But I remember his voice whenever because there's been a lot of talk about the 40th anniversary of Alien this past week. May 25th is not just the anniversary of Star Wars, but the anniversary of Alien. And I was thinking about Aliens and him, and just the way he screamed Ripley in the middle of this theater. Like, he was a grown man, as loud as he could. He was so captivated by this movie and so into it. And it's a memory I have of a guy I knew, and he's not here with us anymore. And I love that.
All right,
Ripley, like in a darkened theater at the. Oh, it was great.
All right, we move on here. Tyler Van writes, only one more week until Black Mirror season 5. Can't wait. I've still only ever seen one episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, dude, you'd love it.
And it was that one that won a bunch of Emmys.
San Junipero?
The one where they're
virtual reality.
They're in a Matrix sort of idea. Yeah, that's the one I saw. I believe that's the girl who's in Terminator, right? That's Mackenzie Davis is in that.
Yes, it is.
It's a very good episode, but I keep hearing about all these ones I have to watch. Like they've got a Star Trek kind of spoofy one. I keep hearing great things about it, but I've never checked it out. Maybe I should start getting caught up here.
Watch the national anthem, the very first episode. It'll blow your mind.
All right. Zach Bartran writes, of all the big films coming this summer, which would you be most shocked to see underperform at the box office? Oh, that's easy. Lion King.
Yep.
Anything can disappoint and fall short. Yep. But considering I'm thinking Lion King is easily going to be a $2 billion film, not guaranteed, may not, but I'm thinking its potential is $2 billion club or more. To see Lion King come out and maybe make $600 million, that's the one to me that would be the most shocking. Rob, can you think of anyone that tops that?
Lion King is the one that would, we've had such high hopes for it for so long. I'd be very hard-pressed to believe it wouldn't be more than a gigantic smash hit.
All right, next up, we've got Murray Reich, who writes, there's an article by Cinema Blend that Rian Johnson was able to check out the new Star Wars park and said it looks great, and also the green milk was delicious. Yeah, that report was running around a bunch of places. Rian Johnson has gone to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. He's ranting and raving about it. He's having a great time. I'm going in 2 weeks. We've already got our schedule set. We've got our time slot. Gonna go see it in 2 weeks. Very excited. I'm glad Rian Johnson liked it, but I gotta see if I like it. That's the most important thing for me. All right. Blake Feely writes, saw Booksmart. It's my favorite movie of the year so far. Yeah, I had a choice. Ann and I went to Universal Studios Hollywood last night. I love going to Universal Studios Hollywood. And there's an AMC theater there. So we said, hey, let's go to a movie at the end of the night. And we had a choice to either see Booksmart or Brightburn. We chose Brightburn. I'll probably try... I can't see Booksmart tonight because I'm seeing Ma. I can't see Booksmart tomorrow night because I'm seeing Godzilla. Maybe Thursday. I got to get around to seeing because I'm hearing great things about it, Blake. You're not the only one who's raving about it. Kevin Lewis writes, John, you hate watch S.H.I.E.L.D. and I'll hate watch Star Trek Discovery. Deal? No deal. I've hate watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now for like 5 years, and I'm done. I am tapped out. I've hate watched it long enough. And it wasn't pure hate watching because I love Clark Gregg. I think he's awesome, and I love him as Agent Coulson, and I've watched for that, and that's what's kept me in there. Ming-Na's also really good, but I just can't take it anymore. And I wouldn't wish anybody to hate watch anything. So if you don't like Star Trek Discovery, which I'll happily watch for all of us, because I think it's awesome. But if you don't, I don't want you hurting yourself and watching it. Go watch something you're going to enjoy, and I'll do the same. So you don't watch Discovery, I won't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. We got ourselves a deal.
I'll continue to hate watch Discovery, though.
I thought you said you're tapped out on it.
No, it's Star Trek. I have to watch it.
That's exactly how I felt about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's Marvel. I gotta watch it, even though I kind of hate it. But I've just decided not to punish myself anymore, Rob. I would say don't punish yourself anymore. You know, you gave it a shot. You gave it 2 seasons.
Well,
if it doesn't work, don't.
It's part of my own history.
Well,
I can't
I get
watch
that.
Star Trek. I have to have an opinion about it. You know, we got Picard coming down. We got Lower Decks.
I am excited about Picard, I gotta say. All right, Blake Feely sends us a couple super chats. Thank you, Blake. Let's see. Paul M. writes, Game of Thrones Season 8, tangents for the win. I don't know what that means, but I love Game of Thrones Season 8, so that's just me. Dropkick Aggie writes, less than 100 days till opening NFL game. Very excited about the NFL season this year. This is going to be finally the year for all of you who have been praying for it for decades. This will be the year where we will start to see the decline of the New England Patriots.
Go Seahawks.
Who just re-upped with their quarterback for a ridiculous amount of money. I got a feeling, though, this is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs year. They are now a year more experienced. They've been through what they went through with the Patriots. They've been through it. You know, they've often said in sports, you can't know how to win until you know how to lose. And I think the Chiefs are going to be totally scary this year. The Rams, not as much. They lost Ndamukong Suh. That's going to hurt them defensively. But anyway, I won't go into too much sports here. Anyway, but yeah, you watch. It's going to start to be the decline of the Patriots. I'll still be cheering for them, though. Okay, Suthius writes, I'm a huge Transformers fan. I've seen all the series. I have 300 figures, and I've enjoyed Bumblebee, but I dislike their Cybertonian look. Like straight from video games, fan service in wrong sense, in my opinion. I don't know. I kind of dug it. Now, back in the day, I had probably about 70 or more figures, and then what I would do is I would cut out, because you remember the boxes they came in? I would cut out the front picture of the character and then cut out the power bar from the back and put them up on my bedroom wall. And my bedroom wall was covered with Transformers images and their power bar levels. As one might assume, Rob, I didn't have a lot of ladies in my bedroom. You might find that surprising, but not a lot of girls were coming to John Campea's bedroom at the time. And so I didn't need to worry about that shutting down the deal right there. But man, I love them. But I got to admit, I did like the Cybertonian look in Bumblebee. What did you think?
I liked it too. I thought it was pretty cool, that whole opening sequence. I mean, I liked it. But I understand. I mean, it's the whole idea of Cybertron is sort of anthropomorphized. But why would Transformers need? I mean, what do Transformers do in their off hours? Do they like go to cafes and drink tea?
I think so.
Like, what do they do?
I don't know. They probably played volleyball. Like Top Gun. All right. Let's see. Patrick Conway writes, is the John Wick spin-off ballerina still a thing? I'm not sure. I do know the Continental, the television series, is still a thing. I don't know about ballerina. That's a good question. Bobby Lorca writes, Pattinson is getting Oscar buzz for The Lighthouse. Yeah, I'm hearing it too. And I don't know. I'm not hearing it super strong, so I'm not anticipating that happening. And I haven't seen Lighthouse yet myself. It hasn't been made available yet. But I'm not surprised. He's just that good of an actor. So let's see if the Batman thing works out. Okay, where are we at here? Jeff Crow writes, saw Aladdin Sunday. And these kids around me said they wanted to see all the films to the trailers except Dora. Who is that film for then? I'm telling you what, I have been with people who have been open to the idea of Dora. And the first thing that happens is, wait, Dora's in high school? What? And look, as I didn't say it, not a friend of mine said it, but these people sitting beside us, and I remember we cracked up, Rob, because they said, this is wrong. I kid you not. We're watching this movie, the trailers are up. This people beside us, and it was a couple too, and it might have been the girl that said it. I'm not sure. This is so wrong. Dora shouldn't have tits. And I just remember going, oh my God. And I just, like, I didn't want it. I was embarrassed because I didn't want it to look like I was eavesdropping, because I wasn't. I could just hear. But she's like, Dora shouldn't have tits. And I'm like, and I just about died. And everybody around us started laughing. And like, there's your hashtag for the week.
I think the time has passed for a Dora movie.
I do too. I don't know what they were thinking. And look, though, let's give it this one benefit of the doubt. We have all seen a lot of movies with some terrible looking trailers that turn out to be quite good.
Sure.
And maybe that'll be the case here. I mean, Michael Pena did sign up for it. Maybe there's something deeper to it that we're not seeing yet. And maybe it'll be a fun little national treasure kind of movie for young teens. Maybe.
But even if they expected the audience that was young to watch Dora when they're grown up, aren't they too grown up now?
Maybe.
Hasn't Dora been, isn't it like you've missed your window?
Yeah, I don't get how this one got greenlit. But
amazing.
Now watch, it's going to make $700 million.
Yeah, but then you think someone would make a Sonic the Hedgehog movie next.
Who knows? That sounds a little too far-fetched though, Rob. All right, let's try this. Heavy Riaz 405 writes, have you seen Jack Ryan with John Krasinski? No. Which is crazy because I love John Krasinski. And I want to see it, but it's, again, I don't watch an awful lot of television. I just don't have time. And I'm still trying to get caught up in Barry season 2. I'm trying to watch Chernobyl. I got caught up on Lucifer, but no, I've never seen it. And I've heard nothing but good things. Did you ever have a chance to check it out?
I really liked it. I'll watch any Tom Clancy. I'm a huge Jack Ryan fan. I really liked the series. I thought it was great.
Okay, we move on now. Jake Waters writes, hey, John and co, thoughts on Liam Neeson reportedly joining the Kingsman prequel and thoughts on the film as a whole. Epic cast. Thanks from England. You're talking to unfortunately, I'm the wrong guy to ask. Honestly, as much as I loved the first Kingsman Secret Service, the second one disillusioned me so much, I just don't care about it anymore. Like, I'm not going to get on my YouTube channel and make 18 videos in 30 days about how Kingsman 2 sucks and everything about it and everybody who's attached to it sucks and blah, not. But it disappointed me and disillusioned me so much because I love the first one so much that I just have no interest in it, to be honest with you. I really don't. And that's even with Taron Egerton and why am I forgetting Harry's Academy Award winning director Colin Firth. Thank you. Why was I freezing on Colin Firth's name? Anyway, even with them, and I love these two guys, even with their next movie, I'm not even sure I'm all that interested, but I have zero interest in this. Rob, you heard about any of this stuff, and does it catch your interest at all?
Look, I love Liam Neeson as an actor. I've loved him all the way back to, Excalibur in 81? I mean, I love Liam Neeson, but again, like you, John, I mean, I really like the first Kingsman. I love The Gentleman's Secret Agent. It's all a riff on James Bond and the Knights of the Round Table and all that. I love all that. I love the Britishness of it. But yeah, like you, I was bummed out by The Golden Circle.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hopefully this new one of these movies will spark my interest in the franchise. I hope it does. All right, Metal Gear Stud One writes, most shocking TV moments: Dexter, Rita dies; Game of Thrones, Red Wedding; Breaking Bad, Hank dies in the desert. What are some of yours? By the way, love your show. Thanks, you guys. Man, it's hard not to say Red Wedding. Yeah. I mean, Red Wedding. That captivated everybody everywhere. And you want to see some of the best reaction videos in the world? Go online, go onto YouTube and search for people reacting, like where people would have their video cameras out, because people who read the books would have their video cameras out on their Game of Thrones watching parties to film their friends as the Red Wedding was happening. Go and look up those videos on YouTube because it's some of the funniest stuff ever. Look, Sons of Anarchy had a lot of shocking deaths. Sopranos Has some shocking stuff, big surprises. All the ones are good, but I gotta go Red Wedding. Rob, what about you?
You know, I have to say those are all great, but go to Breaking Bad. Gus Fring, one of the things that he was in that explosion, but then he comes out of the explosion.
Yeah,
and it was
just his tie,
and he comes out just his tie, and then he turns, and you realize half his face is basically gone. I don't know why, but that really disturbed me. I found that to be really shocking, not from a plot point of view, but just the way they did it from a visceral human being response, like, oh my God, that poor dude, even though he was an evil guy. I was really affected by that.
All right. Next up here, we've got Stubble McShave writes, Good Omens premieres this week. Are you going to see it? I'm probably going to wait to hear what people think about it, and maybe I'll jump on board with it. Rob, you got much interest?
Dude, I can't wait. I've loved the book so much. I love Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman's book. I love Neil Gaiman. It looks so good.
It does look good.
The cast is so good. I can't wait.
I like Michael Sheen a lot. So. Anyway. Aaron Ross writes, thanks for all you do, John. Love the shows. Thank you so much, Aaron. Always nice when somebody just wants to write in to say something nice. So thank you for that, sir. And hey, listen, guys, by the way, I'm going to go long today. I'm going to try to get through all the super chat questions. But Rob, do you have anywhere you got to be? If you got to go.
I actually do.
Okay, well, why don't you split out of here? Well, while you're here, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on YouTube at The Burnett Work. Find me on Instagram at RM Burnett. Or my adjacent website, theburnetwork.net.
All right, now get the hell out of my office. All right, thanks for being here, Rob. All right, guys, I'm going to just continue on here today because, give me a call later. And we're going to keep going. But I was going to see if you wanted to see Ma tonight. I got a spare +1 at the ArcLight. Oh, you can't? Oh, screw you then. Get out of here. All right, here we go. Aaron, where are we at here? We're at Chris Feldman writes, you mentioned Pardon the Interruption yesterday. Love that show. Tony and Mike have great chemistry. Siskel and Ebert had that too. Missed their reviews. Yeah, I love Wilbon and Kornheiser. I really do. I love that show very, very much. They have terrific chemistry. Again, these are guys that like best buddies but can yell at each other because they're safe to do so. I love that. I think that's terrific. I do love PTI very, very much. All right. Fabricio Marino just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Fabricio. Eric Huffman writes, aside from different movie tastes than your own, are there factors that let you know a critic may not be worth paying attention to? Here's the thing for me, Eric. I don't care if a critic has tastes similar to mine or different than mine. I really don't care. You know, my favorite film critic of all time is, honestly, I'm not saying this because it's the standard answer, but honestly, is Roger Ebert. I loved Roger Ebert. And I disagreed with his opinions at least half the time, at least. What I look for in a critic is just their ability to express their experience with a film. And if they're really good at expressing and painting the picture of what their experience with a film is and what they thought of a film, then I learned to gauge. I know I knew how Roger Ebert's taste differed from mine. So if he was effective in communicating why he felt about a movie a certain way, I, as an audience member, then knew how to take that and to interpret it. I don't place value on film critics on whether or not they have the same opinions as me. To me, that's boring, and what's entertaining about that? I don't mind having a critic that agrees with me or that I agree with. What I primarily look for, regardless of whether I agree with them or not, is their ability to communicate their experience with the movie. And if they do that effectively and well, I'm entertained, and it gives me a good idea about whether I might like it or not because I know how to gauge that critic's thoughts. That's the most important thing to me. And the only time I know that a critic isn't worth paying attention to is if they have no gift and no skill. And there are a lot of them out there like that. They actually don't have any gift or skill in communicating their experience with the movie. Like, there's a lot of film critics out there. It's just, this movie sucks. And that's their thing, right? I like film critics who can, again, effectively communicate their experience with the movie, whether or not it's the same one I had. So that's usually when I tune out as somebody, Eric. Anyway, Cyber Matt writes, not having an Obi-Wan movie is criminal. I don't know. I don't think we need an Obi-Wan movie. Look, I'm open to one. I could even get modestly excited about the idea of one. But I don't honestly think an Obi-Wan movie is necessary. Then again, no movie is necessary. But, I mean, I think it's okay if they don't. It's perfectly fine if they don't. But I'd be down for it if they did. That's kind of where I'm at right now with it. Second Street Marvel writes, Go off on tangents and belabor all you like. Well, I appreciate that, Second Street. That's a reference to a text post I put up on YouTube last night. Thank you for that, Second Street. Dimsum05 writes, John, I can see your pores. So cool. Yeah, I'm using a new camera, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed it. I have several really good cameras, but I just started using a new one that I think might be the best camera I've ever used. I'm using a Sony a6400, which I was using the Canon XC15 4K camera as my main camera, and I love that camera. But I find that this A6400 might be the best camera I've ever owned. So I've moved the Canon XC15 over to where Ashley would normally sit because she's closer to the camera there anyway, so it looks fantastic. And I've also got a Sony A6400 over on Rob right now. So I love talking tech. So thanks for recognizing that, Dim Sum. Ryan Lohner writes, let's remember Bill Buckner for getting, he passed away. Let's remember Bill Buckner for getting over 2,500 hits rather than one mistake after his knees were shot. At least that pain is over. Yeah, I've always felt bad for Bill Buckner. You're on the big stage, you make the one mistake, and you go down in infamy for it. And everybody forgets about the incredible things you did in your career. But anyway, he's passed away now. I hope people will do just like you're doing, Ryan, and remember the amazing things he did rather than one stupid mistake, which everybody has done. They just don't all do it when the spotlight's on them. That's the only difference. All right, James Bonner writes, I may or may not have procured copies of the original Star Wars trilogy to specialized editions. Not sure how it happened. Now, if you're talking about the despecialized editions, not the original editions, the despecialized ones are still tough to come across, and they're fun. And by the way, if you guys ever come across, I don't know where you can find them anymore, but there are these cuts of the prequels called the de-cheesed editions, the uncheesed or the de-cheesed, something like that. They actually make the prequels watchable. I kid you not. They actually make the prequels watchable if you get a chance to see those. Run Amok Design writes, man tears for Endgame, obviously. Now, I can't help but wonder how Silvestri's orchestra felt playing that theme, particularly Portals and Main on End. Probably not much, because they do these things thousands of times, and they've probably done them for really heavy-hitting dramas, too, that have probably been more emotional. I have never particularly thought that the MCU soundtracks have been all that great. Not bad, but not great. It's actually an area that I thought DC films have always done a better job at, is their musical scores. However, it really did come together nicely for Endgame. It really, really did come together nicely for Endgame. Let's see. Mo Raman writes, I subscribe to Netflix, Amazon, and Now TV UK, but spend more time watching the John Campea Show. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, man. That's awfully nice of you to say. And it's like, yeah, we probably put up like 2 to 3 hours, depending on the day. We put up a minimum of 2 hours of content a day. And that is a lot. I confess that is a lot. But thank you so much, man. That's really nice of you to say, and I'm glad to have you along, and thank you for being a part of our film fan community, man. It's really good to hear. All right. River Hippotuber, I love that name. River Hippotuber writes, I don't get the criticism some have about the high number of streaming providers. I don't have to be subbed to all 16 at the same time. This month it was HBO, next month Hulu. Bring on the filthy. Yeah, I don't know that I have, like, say, criticism for the number of streaming services. But I think we are getting into a model right now that is unsustainable. I think it's unsustainable. We can't, because they're just proliferating at a huge rate. Like, there's like 7 or 8 streaming services you can have now. There's going to be like 21 or 22 within the next year or two. And then more. Pretty soon, you're going to be paying to watch all the content you want to watch. You're going to be paying more than we ever did back in the dark days of cable. This is an unsustainable model. Now, what's going to happen is the market will start to correct itself. Give it a couple of years. In a few years, the market will start to correct itself, where you're going to start seeing package deals where, like, Disney Plus and Hulu. By the way, Disney's already suggested they're going to give a Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus package deal, where for one smaller rate, you can have all three. I suspect that the market will self-correct over time, that we're going to have this period of huge proliferation of all these massive numbers of streaming services. And then what's going to happen is the market's going to self-correct, start to contract a little bit, and we're going to see more package and bundles and stuff like that going, well, if you subscribe to this service, you get the Disney streaming, the Warner Brothers streaming, Hulu, and Amazon Plus, or something like that. I don't know how it'll all work out, and it will take a couple of years, but we're seeing these shifts in momentum. We're going to get a proliferation of all these streaming services. Everybody's going to realize it's not, sustainable. Not everybody's going to subscribe to 10 different services. You're going to start to contract a little bit. Give it some time. But yeah, right now you have the option of, well, Game of Thrones is done. I can cancel HBO, but I can't because I'm still watching Barry and I'm watching Chernobyl and I don't want to. I'm still watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon. I don't want to. It's tough, man. It is an interesting time to be a streaming consumer. It's an interesting time to be a streaming consumer. All right, the Crone Doggy writes, how many films have you seen? Do you keep a list? I do not keep a list. It's certainly in the thousands, but I honestly don't keep a list. Giuliano Molina writes, hello from Cancun, Mexico, John. Big fan since the OG. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. AMC question seems like in Spider-Man. AMC question seems like in Spider-Man are opening the multiverse. How do you feel if Toby and Andrew come to play the new movie? They won't. That's not going to happen. Those things were never considered multiverse and all that kind of stuff. So no, Tobey Maguire is now well into his 40s. Andrew Garfield is in his mid to late 30s, and they're not going to do anything like that. I don't think it would be a smart move. I think it would reek of being a shtick, of a quick little novelty that doesn't have any lasting value. I love Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I loved Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but those chapters are done, so I don't think that would be a good move on their part, and I don't expect we're going to see them do it. But that does not mean I did not deeply appreciate what they did as those characters. I did. But no, that's a silly little shtick that you do for a 5-minute YouTube video or something on Comedy Central or something like that. I don't think you actually do that with your movie universe. That's just my opinion. Corey Glatton sends in super chat. Thank you, Corey. Cool Some XD writes, amateurs like you do two takes. I do one take. Oh, that sounds really familiar. But I can't peg that one. Cool, so you stumped me on that one. Josie C. Diaz writes, should Hollywood make a live-action Caption Planet? I'll be honest with you, I don't know what that is. I'm stumped on that one. Sasuke Kuchiya writes, assassins were never really scared of John Wick, only the regular people. These sequels are about assassins wanting to kill him, not regular mob. Mob bosses, these are the guys who are the most ruthless, the most fearless, with the most power. These are the guys, the bosses, they're the ones with the power. So yes, no, everybody should be terrified, because even in the first John Wick movie, as the mob boss is talking to his main guy, his main henchman, it's like, so we stole somebody's car. Who cares? And the mob boss goes, it was John Wick's car. And then he gave the same lie that the mob boss does. Oh, so we give it back. I mean, so even then, yes, they were all scared. It wasn't until we get into the second and third one that, because remember, even in the first John Wick, the guy who's, forget the wrestler's real name. The guy who's Diesel from wrestling, Big Daddy Cool. I'm forgetting the guy's real name. Anyway. He was like this main muscle man, right? He was this main enforcer dude. And as soon as John Wick, hello, Mr. Wick. Like, he's terrified of John Wick because it's John Wick. So yes, there was that in the first film, but they just seemed to kind of abandon it as we went into the further films. Let's see here. Where are we at? We are at, that was Sasuke. Ryan Lohner writes, anyone looking for a time travel story that makes sense with consistent rules, check out the Canadian Netflix shows Travelers. Ooh, you've got my curiosity for a couple of reasons. A time travel show that makes sense and a Canadian show. I might have to check that out. James Argento writes, in my opinion, the Star Wars standalones will become Disney Plus series. It's again, I don't know. Maybe. It's certainly an option. That's one of the great things that one of the benefits that Disney's going to have here now is that with that Disney Plus option, they've given themselves a lot of openings to do a lot of different fun things. Nestor Cine Desidave Hollywood sends a super chat. Thank you, Nestor. Adam Zwibbelman sends in a super chat. Thank you, Adam. Dan Rourke writes, is Star Wars Talk Tuesdays ever going to come back? Yeah, I get asked this all the time. Yes. However, It's not going to come back until I have an appropriate co-host. And an appropriate co-host is somebody who, number one, has excellent proven on-camera communication skills. And two, excellent unmatched Star Wars passion and knowledge. I know a number of people with excellent Star Wars knowledge. I know a number of people with some excellent proven on-camera communication abilities. I don't really know many that are both, that would be available to do it with me, right? So as soon as I find that, and not a day before, but as soon as I find that person, and it's got to be somebody I at least am familiar with or whatever, once I find that person, Star Wars Talk Tuesday will come back. But without that person, I can't do the show right. And if I can't do the show right, there's no point in me doing it. You know what I mean? So yes, it's going to come back. It's just going to be a matter of when I can find that person. Darth Sidious writes, "Hey John, do you think it's worth it for Disney to put a review embargo on The Lion King, as we all know what happens?" Yes. Because look, no reviews should give away what happens. No movie reviews should give away spoilers on what happens in a movie. Review embargoes aren't in place so people don't find out what happens. Review embargoes are in place so you don't start talking about their movie until they're ready for you to talk about their movie. It's not about revealing things in the movie. That's not why review embargoes are in place. It's that studios are very meticulous in timing out when they want buzz to hit, riding that momentum. They time it out specifically. They know if you let review embargo lift too early, then the buzz has died out before the movie opens. If you hold it too late, then you're not getting the positive word of mouth, blah, blah, blah. But it's about that. It's not about revealing what happens in the movie, right? We know what happens in Aladdin. That's not why there's a review embargo. We know what happens in Titanic. It sinks. That's not why there's a review embargo. Review embargoes are about marketing companies timing when they want certain buzz to hit and how they want buzz to hit. And sometimes it's about mitigating the damage of what negative buzz is going to be. But that's why review embargoes are there, not to hide secrets from the movie, because no reputable reviewer should be giving away big spoilers for a movie anyway. So that's not the point. So yes, they should have a review embargo for Lion King, absolutely. Ivan Mendoza writes, "Make the standalones once every 5 to 6 years and event films every 2 to 3 years for Star Wars. You guys agree?" I don't know. I don't know that I'd want... it all depends on what their philosophy is. If what Kathleen Kennedy really wants to do here is make the Star Wars films big events whenever they happen, then I can see why she would want to lean away from the standalones. But that, again, that's just me trying to interpret what her words meant. We don't really know for sure what it was exactly her words meant, but that's how I kind of see it at any rate. So, hey, look, if they announce something like that, Ivan, I'd be open to it. But I think there's probably better ways of doing it. Like, I'm down with a movie I'm good for one movie a year. I am good for one movie a year. But if you want to create the eventness of it a little bit more and go once every 2 years, I'm good with that too. I think every 3 years is too much. I think 2 should be the maximum. That's my thought on that at any rate. Jewish Singer 613, I like that name, writes, "Did you see Jimmy Fallon and the Avengers cast sing MCU versions of We Didn't Start the Fire?" I've had a lot of people ask me about that. I saw it on YouTube, but I didn't click it or watch it. Not that I'm against it. I just was busy. So I have seen that all over the place, but I didn't actually watch it myself yet. Maybe you guys have watched it. And by the way, Jewish Singer, you just probably put it on a lot of people's radars. So thank you for that. MZod780 writes, Cannes Film Festival ended, and despite 6 minutes standing ovation, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood didn't win any awards at the end. Is it a bad omen on how the movie will perform financially? No, not at all. Dude, the biggest auteurs in the world take their films to Cannes. Just because you don't win the big award, that doesn't mean anything negative. It was a strong contender for the Audience Award, and it was a strong contender for the Palme d'Or. But just because it doesn't win doesn't mean, oh, that's a bad sign. Not at all. Some of the best filmmakers in the world take their films there. Just because you don't win the award there, that does not mean bad things for it at all. I wouldn't worry about that, MZod. I wouldn't worry about that at all. Guess what? Django Unchained didn't win the Palme d'Or either. And it did perfectly fine. Inglourious Basterds didn't win the Palme d'Or, and it did perfectly great at the box office. So, no, man, I wouldn't worry about that. I know we sweat these things a little bit as fans, but I don't think there's anything to sweat here whatsoever. So I think we're good. I think we're covered. Jay Meister25 writes, kind of sad that Lucasfilm can't stick to a plan. I just don't know. look, making one change is not failing to be able to stick to a plan. And remember, it's not like there's a difference between doing one movie, now completely change everything, then doing one more movie, now let's completely change everything, then doing one more movie, now let's completely change everything, like we kind of saw DC do in the early days. And they're not doing that anymore, but what we saw them do in the early days. There's a difference between going, you know what, we've now been doing this for 5 years. We've had 4 full-length feature films come out. We've got a sense about what our audience is and what we should be doing. Let's course adjust. That's different from like the old days of the DCEU of just constantly jumping back and forth and moving between like having a plan one day, not having a plan the next day, blah, blah, blah. You go 4 films, 5 years, and then you make some course corrections. That's perfectly fine. And if now after 4 movies, they're deciding, okay, time to course correct, then course correct. I don't necessarily agree with the course corrections, but I'm perfectly fine with the philosophy that after you do a number of films, if you want to reassess where you're at and make some adjustments, go for it. I don't think that at all insinuates that they can't stick to a plan. Sticking to a plan doesn't mean you make a plan and then 15 years go by, no matter how good or bad things are, you never change it. That's not what sticking to a plan means. Even with the best game, look, the best NBA teams in the world, they play the first half, they had a great plan, but after the first half is done and you've seen how things are going, you go into the locker room at halftime, you make some adjustments. You come out differently and hopefully better in the second half. And that's all I see Lucasfilm doing here. All right, Darth Sidious writes, John, don't forget that Disney is also getting a Love Simon TV show for the streaming service. Yes, that has been announced that they're doing a Love Simon, which is great. If you guys haven't seen Love Simon, by the way, the movie version, really nice little film. I was really happy with that film. Very, very nice little film. Check that out if you guys get a chance. Javier Rios 405 writes, would you like to see a sequel to Aladdin 2019? I really don't know where you'd go, to be honest. I think the story is told. Now, if they announced tomorrow that they were going to do one, I'd be curious. But honestly, I adored this movie. I had a very good time with it. Again, not a top 15 movie of the year or anything like that, but I had a good time with it. But I believe Aladdin is a one-shot story. And I think it plays well, especially if you know how it ends. If you know how it ends, which by the way, the cartoon ends a little bit different than the live action version does. If you know how it ends, it doesn't really make sense to me to do another one. So I'm okay with there not being one. Phoenix Rising writes, just finished your book, The Pride. Oh man, thank you so much. You inspired me to start writing. I just published a short story about true crime at phoenixrising.com. Well, first of all, man, thank you for checking out my book. I appreciate that. And thank you for your kind words. And good luck on trying to write it, because I know trying to write a novel, man, for me, it took 5 years. And it took an awful while. Evan, so I hope your pace is better than mine was, Phoenix. Evan Tertainment writes, it was Short Circuit 2, thoughts on the franchise. Oh, it was Short Circuit 2. Okay, so I got that one right. I wasn't big on Short Circuit after 1. Let's just say that. I wasn't really big on it after 1 is an all-time classic that I'll always remember. Johnny 5 is alive, but it kind of deteriorated after that for me. Joseph DePina just sends a shout. Thank you, Joseph. Sujith writes, have you seen the John Gordon-Levitt porn addiction movie with Brie Larson playing his sister and Scarlett Johansson playing his girlfriend? Weird watch for me on Netflix. Yes, and I believe the lady who is the villain in Kingsman 2. I'm looking, she's one of the most famous actresses in the world. Why am I freezing on her name? This is unacceptable. Why am I freezing on her name? She's one of the greatest actresses in the world, and I'm freezing on her damn name. Why am I freezing on her name? The movie also had, come on, where is she? Julianne Moore. Why did I freeze on Julianne Moore's name? Anyway, the movie also had Julianne Moore. I like that. I think it was called Don John instead of Don Juan. I think it was called Don John. I think that was the name of the film. I quite liked that movie. I did. It was really a neat character kind of study, taking a really weird kind of situation, but making the most of it. I thought it was quite good. If I'm thinking of the right movie, if I'm thinking, let me just double check here to make sure I'm thinking of the right movie. Don John. Yeah, Don John was the name of it. It had, it was directed, by the way, also, it was directed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which was great. Scarlett Johansson, I forgot that Tony Danza was in that as well. I forgot about that. Tony Danza. And actually, I did a Q&A with Joseph Gordon-Levitt Let me see if I can pick this up here. I'm sure that I can. But I had this great situation where I had Joseph Gordon-Levitt come into my studio to sit down and actually talk about Don John. And after we sat down and talked about Don John, we then went into an AMC theater where they were doing one of the first early screenings of Don John. And he was doing an early screening of it. And actually, here we go. Let me just bring this up here. He was doing an early screening of Don John. So there's me and Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the theater talking about Don John. And actually, just before we went into the theater, again, he was in my studio there, and we sat down and got to talk about the movie. I really quite enjoy this film. I really quite enjoy this film a lot. I think it's actually really quite good and really quite nice. And if you guys haven't had a chance to see it, again, Brie Larson, Scarlett Johansson, Julianne Moore, it's really, really quite good. Go check that out if you get a chance. Okay, Mala writes, hey guys, the silence from The Usual Suspects on YouTube surrounding the cringeworthy Batwoman trailer is deafening. I think I know why. What do you think? I think people are making too much out of it than there needs to be. It's not all that good, but it's just simple as that. It's just not a very good trailer. I don't really see what there is to talk much about. Unless you want to engage in fake outrage and all that kind of stuff. But it just, look, bottom line is it's not a good trailer. I mean, it's all subjective. You may like the trailer and that's fine. But I mean, I just saw the trailer. It's like, okay, well, that was disappointing. What is there to talk about? It's a poor trailer for a show that hasn't come out yet and we haven't seen. So there's really nothing to talk about. This is a bad trailer came out. It's a bad trailer. I would ask, why are you looking for more to be said? Again, anything else being said at this point would just be fake outrage. But it's just a bad trailer. That's all it is to me. All right, Sujith writes. I lost Sujith. Where'd he go? There he is. Sujith writes. Sorry, the movie in the earlier super chat is Don John. Yep, I remembered. I picked that one out. Valhalla Erickson writes, I like that name. Lucasfilm should focus on producing original films than standalone prequels of original trilogy, in my opinion. I've been saying that for years. Like, I'm okay if you want to do an Obi-Wan movie, but quite frankly, I am so over the whole idea about let's make prequels about characters we already know. I'm completely over it. Now, you want to have a guest appearance by a familiar face? That's fine. That's why Rogue One, to me, worked so well. Rogue One was a great, fun war movie. And it's okay if you want to have little guest appearances by Vader or Tarkin. That's great. But the movie was about brand new characters in a story that had never been explored before. That's great. I'm kind of over that idea. So I'm not far off from you on that, Valhalla. All right, Dimsum05 writes, did you check out Samsung's algorithm that can create a convincing animation of someone with a single frame? Wild stuff. I've seen some people posting stuff, but I haven't checked it out myself. I am very curious to look into that, though. I Almost Won writes, since Bran is the king, but also the three-eyed raven, and the three-eyed raven can live up to 100 years, will he be king that long? Also, I like season 8. I would guess so. It's just that even if he does ever have a kid, which he can't have kids, but even if he could, the kid doesn't automatically become the next king. The way the setup is, once the king dies, the heads of all the houses select a new king, and they get rid of the lineage, which I thought was a really nice way to end that show. So yes, my guess is he's king as long as he lives. Nicholas Pereira writes, stupid rumor for Venom and Spidey 3. Do you think Feige is crazy enough to allow this, and what this idea would imply? No, I don't believe it. It'd be interesting if they did, but they are not looking to cross these universes over, because Venom belongs to Sony. And I don't think Marvel wants to become beholden to Sony on anything that they don't need to be. So no, I don't think they would do it. But I'll tell you this, if they announced that they were doing Nicholas, I got to admit, as a fan, I'd be kind of intrigued. All right, Darth Suthius writes, last two questions of the day, guys. Darth Suthius writes, have you watched the Netflix original show called The 7 Deadly Sins, or heard of it at least? Somebody actually brought this up on yesterday's show. Somebody brought up this exact question. So until yesterday, no, I had never heard of it. But I heard of it as of yesterday, and it has been now put on my radar, Darth. Marie Seifring, our final question of the day. John Lithgow is another great actor without an Oscar. Loved him in The World According to Garp. Oh, that's another Robin Williams film that doesn't get enough chatter. he's great. The interesting thing about Jonathan Lithgow is he's thought of as much as a television actor. He's maybe thought of more as a television actor than he is even a movie actor, which is weird. But, you know, he had one of the biggest, most successful sitcoms of all time with Third Rock. And so I don't really think of him in terms of Oscars, but that is an interesting one. I can't remember he's ever been nominated. That's an interesting question too. All right, guys, that will do it for today's long version of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here with me today, guys. Listen, don't forget, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow with me and Robert Meyer Burnett back as well, talking about a whole bunch of new stuff along the way. Listen, guys, while you're here, why don't you take a second, click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Take a moment and click the thumbs up button if you enjoy having good movie talk around here, whether you agreed or disagreed with what we talked about. If you had a good time talking it, click the thumbs up button and help us out there. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.